Chapter 322. The sun was setting in the west, and the willow branches swayed gently. The golden sunlight spread over the lake. Occasionally, the wind would blow, and the lake would ripple with broken golden light. Xiao Bao sat quietly on the grass by the lake. His small figure was dyed with a layer of golden light by the setting sun. There was a fishing rod by his feet, and the long fishing line was hanging in the lake. For a long time, there was no movement. Mika Kito was wearing casual clothes. She put her hands in her trouser pockets and walked slowly behind him. She said calmly, "Fishing with a straight hook? Are you planning to learn from Jiangxia?" Xiao Bao's little face was cold, and his eyes were cold. He said angrily, "I don't want you to care." Mika Kito sat down beside him and looked down at him. "Are you angry with me now?" Xiao Bao turned his head away. "I didn't expect you to lie to me with Mom." Mika Kito turned his little head back. "We didn't lie to you. We just hid some things from you." "Xiao Bao, we hid it from you because we didn't want you to get hurt." Xiao Bao's pink face puffed up, and tears welled up in his eyes. "If that woman didn't appear, were you planning to hide it from me forever?" Mika Kito rubbed his hair. "Because we never treated you as an outsider. You are Xia Xia and Bailey Han's son." Tears rolled down his face. He buried his head in his knees and sobbed. "Why did they abandon me?" Mika Kito knew that Xiao Bao was referring to his biological parents. Mika Kito retracted her hand and had a manly conversation with him. "Xiao Bao, they must have their reasons for abandoning you. If you want to know the reason, talk to them face to face." Xiao Bao buried his head between his legs. After a long silence, he said in a muffled voice, "I'm going back to a city tomorrow." "Okay, I just finished my business. I'll go back with you. Can I still call you Uncle Shen in the future?" Mika Kito couldn't help but laugh. She rubbed his hair with her wide palm. "Don't you dare. Uncle Shen." He looked up and grinned. There were still traces of tears on his face. Mika Kito responded and smiled. "Let's go. It's almost dinner time. Don't let your grandfather worry." "Okay." Xiao Bao stood up and patted the grass on his little butt. His little mouth opened, revealing 2 cute dimples. "Uncle Shen, I want to ride a big horse." "How old are you? Why you still riding a horse?" Beiding Shen squatted down, stretched out his hands, and placed them on both sides of his head. "Come on up." Xiao Bao sat on his shoulder. He held Xiao Bao's legs firmly with both hands and said softly, "Sit tight. Don't fall." "Got it?" As Mika Kito slowly stood up, Xiao Bao felt that he was very, very tall. His vision had also become wider, and his mood had also become brighter. He laughed loudly. "Uncle Shen, run. Kid, sit tight." Mika Kito's lips curled up. She held onto his legs and started running on the grass. A Xiao Bao shouted loudly. His voice echoed throughout the valley. 2 days later, at the Bailey mansion, the old lady sat expressionlessly at the head of the table. Xia Dong sat beside her, and across from them sat Suzuki Qian Sakura. She was elegantly holding a teacup and gently sipping from it. She put down her teacup and smiled. "Madam, Mrs. Bailey, I'm here today to thank you for taking care of Xiao Bao, and also to see Xiao Bao. Miss Suzuki, before you see Xiao Bao, we have to reach an agreement. We'll give Xiao Bao the freedom to choose. Once he makes a choice, the other party can't force Xiao Bao to change his mind. What do you think?" Suzuki Qian Sakura laughed softly. "Madam, I can't agree to this condition. I'm Xiao Bao's biological mother. I have the right to take him away. If I encounter any obstacles, I'll ask for legal aid." Xia Dong's pupils constricted. She didn't expect this woman to be so cunning. She actually changed her mind. She had a feeling that this matter wouldn't be easily resolved. The old lady's expression changed. "Back then, we agreed to let you meet Xiao Bao because you agreed to let him choose. Since you've changed your mind, we won't abide by the agreement. Miss Suzuki, please leave." Suzuki Qian Sakura smiled faintly. She didn't seem to take it to heart. She stood up from her seat. "Then I won't disturb you." The old lady's face darkened. "See the guest out. Miss Suzuki, this way please." Suzuki Chien Sakura and the butler had already reached the entrance when hurried footsteps could be heard coming from upstairs. Soon they were downstairs. Xiaobao's small figure appeared at the top of the stairs. He shouted, "Wait a minute. Xiaobao, why are you down here?" Xia Dong hurriedly got up and walked towards him. Suzuki Chien Sakura slowly turned around and looked at the child standing at the top of the stairs. He was handsome and his fists were tightly clenched. Although he tried to maintain a calm expression, she could see the uneasiness in his eyes. She pursed her lips and smiled. "Xiaobao, you already know who I am, don't you?" Xiaobao's chest rose and fell rapidly. He gritted his teeth. "I want to talk to you." Suzuki Chien Sakura looked at the old lady, whose face was ashen, and then at Xia Dong, who was in a daze. Finally, she nodded. Xiaobao turned his head away and looked at the old lady and Xia Dong. "Great-grandma Mommy, I want to talk to her." They had no choice but to nod. Xiaobao said coldly, "Come with me." He walked up the stairs with his short legs. Suzuki Chien Sakura pursed her lips and followed behind him. The two of them entered Xiaobao's room. Suzuki Chien Sakura looked at his room carefully. It was decorated in a very mature style and didn't look like a child's room at all. She looked at Xiaobao. He was only 5 years old, but he was like an adult. He was calm and rational. She almost couldn't believe that this was her child. The mother and son sat facing each other, and the atmosphere was very tense. Suzuki Chien Sakura coughed to break the tense atmosphere. "Xiaobao, Mommy wants you to come back to Japan with me." Xiaobao stared at her coldly. "Who is my father?" Suzuki Chien Sakura was stunned. She smiled faintly. "You'll see him soon." He didn't want to dwell on this question anymore. He clenched his fists tightly and his eyes were burning with anger. "Why did you abandon me?" She looked bitter. "I got pregnant out of wedlock. My parents felt that it was an insult to their family and chased me out. I had nothing and couldn't support you, so you abandoned me. What about that man? Why didn't he take responsibility?" Xiaobao gritted his teeth. She shook her head. "He didn't know about your existence." "Xiaobao, I know I've let you down, so let me make it up to you, okay? Come back to Japan with me. I'll love you well." She reached out and wanted to hug him. He pushed her away angrily. "If you really loved me, you wouldn't have abandoned me." "I was really at my wit's end at that time." Xiaobao looked at her viciously. "You were at your wit's end? Aren't you still alive now? You just wanted to get rid of a burden like me. Now that you have money, you feel guilty. Or perhaps you suddenly realize that I'm useful, so you want to get me back, right?" Suzuki Chien Sakura's eyes widened. "You? How can you say that about me? I'm your mother." He clenched his fists angrily and said angrily, "Why can't I? You haven't done your duty as a mother for even a day." "Xiaobao, I'm sorry." Tears welled up in her eyes. She threw herself at him and hugged him tightly. "Xiaobao, I really have my reasons. Forgive me, forgive me." Xiaobao's eyes were also filled with tears. He hit her back hard and shouted, "When I learned to walk, it was my mother who helped me. When I learned to speak, it was my mother who taught me. When I was sick, it was my mother who took care of me. Or were you? You don't deserve to be my mother. Go away, I don't want you to care about me." I'm sorry." Suzuki Chien Sakura hugged him tightly and sobbed. "Xiaobao, believe me, I'll love you well in the future. I'll make it up to you and give you everything. I won't believe you. Let go of me, let go of me." Xiaobao was very emotional. He punched and kicked Suzuki Chien Sakura. Suzuki Chien Sakura had no choice but to let him go. Her face was full of tears. Xiaobao turned around and said in a sobbing voice, "I don't want to see you now. Go away." She couldn't stop crying. "Xiaobao," he shouted hysterically, "go away." Suzuki Chien Sakura hesitated for a moment and finally left in silence. The door closed. Xiaobao threw himself on the bed and buried himself in the blankets, crying loudly. After Suzuki Chien Sakura left the room, she stood in the corridor for a long time to control her emotions. She then fixed her appearance in the makeup box before going downstairs. Old Madame Sheng had already returned to her room to rest. Xia Dong was the only one in the living room. Suzuki Chien Sakura forced a smile. Xiao Bao is a little emotional. I'll go back first. Xia Dong nodded slightly and walked her to the door. Suzuki Chien Sakura came out of the villa and walked to the parking lot. A red Ferrari approached from afar. She stood still and waited for the Ferrari to stop. Bailey Yun saw Suzuki Chien Sakura standing in front of her car from afar. He frowned but quickly relaxed. He got out of the car and walked towards her with a cold expression. Why are you here? Suzuki Chien Sakura didn't answer him. Instead, she turned around and glanced in the direction of Xiao Bao's room on the second floor. She said calmly, "Ah Yun, do you want to know our son's name?" Bailey Yun's expression changed and his voice was cold. What evidence do you have to prove that the child is mine? She turned around and looked at him. If you don't believe me, you can do a paternity test with our son. His thin lips were pursed and his gaze was terrifying. She walked closer to him and whispered in his ear, "Ah Yun, our son's name is Xiao Bao." Awesome novel, Song Shu 566. Chapter 323. Bailey Yun's eyes were filled with anger, and his voice was bone-chillingly cold. Say that again. There was a look of vengeance on her face. I said, our son's name is Xiao Bao, and he's calling you second uncle now. Slap. Bailey Yun raised his hand and slapped her beautiful face. He pointed at her nose and said sternly, I'm warning you, don't talk nonsense. Xiao Bao is my eldest brother's son. Ha! Suzuki Chien Sakura laughed hysterically, and tears fell from her eyes. Your whole family already knows that Xiao Bao isn't Xia Dong's biological son, but you're still in the dark? Do you know why I'm here today? I'm here to reunite with Xiao Bao. Bailey Yun felt as if he had been struck by lightning, and his heart was about to stop beating. His fingers were trembling, and the blood in his body seemed to have frozen. He suddenly abandoned Suzuki Chien Sakura and rushed towards the villa. His entire body was emitting a malicious and cold aura, and he barged into the living room like a hurricane. Xia Dong was startled to see him suddenly appear and said, Ah Yun, you're back. His face was ashen, and his eyes were fixed on her. Let me ask you, is Xiao Bao your biological son? Xia Dong suddenly remembered that Bailey Yun did not know about Xiao Bao's background, and pursed her lips. Xiao Bao is a child I adopted. Bailey Yun's expression became more and more unsightly. Who is his biological mother? Suzuki Chien Sakura. His body suddenly froze. It's her, it's really her. No, it's impossible, I don't believe it. He turned and ran upstairs, his footsteps messy and hurried, as if there was a ferocious beast chasing after him. Xia Dong took a few steps forward and asked worriedly, Ah Yun, what's wrong? What responded to her was the sound of his increasingly hurried footsteps. Bailey Yun rushed to Xiao Bao's room and knocked on the door. Xiao Bao, open the door. Xiao Bao was crying in his blanket. He did not want to see anyone at all. When he heard him knocking on the door, he curled up into a ball and covered his ears tightly. Xiao Bao, hurry up and open the door. Bailey Yun anxiously kicked the door. Xiao Bao ignored him and continued to cry under the blanket. Bailey Yun was angry and anxious. He shouted for the housekeeper, took the spare key and opened the door. He immediately saw Xiao Bao curled up into a ball on the bed. He quickly stepped forward and pulled the blanket off her body. With both hands, he scooped Xiao Bao up from the bed. What are you doing? Let me go. Xiao Bao was in a bad mood. He was suddenly pulled out of the quilt and was so angry that he punched and kicked him. Behave yourself. Bailey Yun carried him on his shoulder and slapped his little butt twice. He ran downstairs as fast as he could. Where are you taking me? Hurry up and let me go. In the blink of an eye, Bailey Yun ran downstairs with Xiao Bao on his shoulder. Bailey Yun did not say a word and only focused on running forward. Xia Dong heard the commotion and quickly ran forward to stop him. Ah Yun, what are you doing? It's none of your business. I'm taking Xiao Bao somewhere. Bailey Yun said coldly. He held the punching and kicking Xiao Bao tightly and walked straight out of the villa. Please save me. I don't want to go with him. Xiao Bao shouted as he pounded Bailey Yun's shoulder. He was very fast. Xia Dong could only trot to catch up. Yun, let's sit down and talk. Don't scare the child. Bailey Yun suddenly stopped and stared coldly at Xiao Bao. Xiao Bao, do you want to know who your biological father is? Xiao Bao was stunned. He said again, if you want to, then come with me. After saying this, he continued to walk forward. Xiao Bao did not struggle anymore. Xia Dong wanted to chase after him, but Xiao Bao said, Mom, it's okay. I'll go with second uncle. She could only stop and watch as Bailey Yun threw Xiao Bao into the Ferrari. Bailey Yun took Xiao Bao to a paternity test hospital. He carried Xiao Bao and barged into an office. He said to the doctor, who looked surprised, we want to do a paternity test. Xiao Bao turned his head and stared at Bailey Yun. His little face was filled with astonishment. Bailey Yun pursed his thin lips and looked very upset. The doctor quickly said, do you have an appointment? Bailey Yun said sternly, cut the crap. I want to do it now. He exuded a cold aura. His eyes were red and fierce. The doctor had an illusion that he was like a ferocious beast that could pounce on him and tear him apart at any time. He wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and smiled. Okay, please leave a sample. Blood, hair, oral mucosa. Choose one. Bailey Yun pulled out a few strands of hair from his head and put them in the small bag in the nurse's hand. He lowered his head and stared at Xiao Bao with his dark eyes. He said in a deep voice, pull out a few strands of your hair. Xiao Bao was already confused by his own guess. Without any words, he pulled out a few strands of his hair and put them in another small bag. The doctor said, Sir, please register now. We will come out with the test results in a week. Bailey Yun put Xiao Bao down on the ground. He filled in the form and asked, I will only give you 2 days. I want the results in 2 days. This is impossible. Bailey Yun slammed the pen on the table. 100,000. Give me the results in 2 days. If you can't do it, I will change to another hospital immediately. The doctor picked up the registration form and saw the 3 words, Bailey Yun, written on it. He suddenly thought of the biggest Bailey family in a city. His heart thumped, and he quickly squeezed out a smile. We will come out with the test results as soon as possible. Bailey Yun stared at him coldly. This matter must be kept secret. If you dare to leak a word, your appraisal institution will be closed down. Understood, understood. We will keep it secret. The doctor was more and more certain that the other party was from the Bailey family. Otherwise, who would have such a big tone? Coming out of the office, Bailey Yun walked in front. Xiao Bao lowered his head and walked behind him. The 2 of them, one big and one small, did not speak. After Bai Li Yun walked out of the appraisal center, he stood by the roadside and waited for 2 to 3 minutes, but he didn't hear Xiao Bao's footsteps. He suddenly turned around and saw Xiao Bao standing 10 meters away from him with his head lowered. Although he couldn't see the expression on Xiao Bao's face, he could feel the deep sorrow in Xiao Bao's actions. Bailey Yun's heart ached. He pursed his lips and raised his voice. How long are you going to dawdle there? Xiao Bao ignored him. He simply squatted down and hugged his knees tightly with his arms. It was an action of self-protection after being abandoned. Bailey Yun quickly walked to his side and stared at him condescendingly. He tried his best to soften his voice. Xiao Bao, get up. Let's go home. Xiao Bao's tears fell and hit the concrete floor. They quickly gathered into a small pool of water. He sobbed and said, That's not my home. What nonsense are you talking about? Bailey Yun suddenly pulled him up from the ground and hugged him. That will always be your home. He burst into tears. He cried until he was hoarse and heartbroken. Bailey Yun had never coaxed a child. Although he had been with Xiao Yi for a long time, Xiao Yi had never cried before. Thus, when faced with the sad and crying Xiao Bao, he was a little helpless and did not know how to comfort him. He could only pat his back and whisper, Don't cry. He cried even louder, as if he wanted to pour out all his grievances with tears. Bailey Yun did not feel good either. If the test results showed that Xiao Bao was really his child, he did not know how to face him. Don't cry. Bailey Yun gently patted his back. After a while, Xiao Bao finally stopped crying. Bailey Yun wiped away the tears on his face, patted his head, and whispered, Do you want to go to the amusement park? Xiao Bao nodded silently. Okay, let's go to the amusement park. Bailey Yun put him in the Ferrari. There were many people in the amusement park. They were all parents playing with their children. Bailey Yun was worried that he would be separated from Xiao Bao, so he simply carried him. The two of them shuttled through the crowd for a long time before lining up to get on the roller coaster. The two of them sat in the same carriage. After the roller coaster started, it rushed out of the tunnel at an extremely fast speed. They climbed and rolled on the steel tube track, and all the blood in his body surged. Xiao Bao was initially dispirited, but in the end, stimulated by the strong sense of weightlessness, he screamed with the people around him. The two of them got off the roller coaster and saw the sorry state of the people around them. They laughed loudly. Bailey Yun rubbed Xiao Bao's messy hair. He pointed to a man bent over and vomited next to him and said, "Fortunately, you didn't end up like him." Xiao Bao raised his chin arrogantly. "I went on the roller coaster when I was 4 years old. Do you think I'm that useless?" Bailey Yun laughed. "Who was screaming so loudly just now?" Xiao Bao snorted twice. "You were screaming louder than me just now." Bailey Yun was deliberately trying to make him happy. After being choked by him, he was not displeased. He patted his little head and said, "What else do you want to do?" "Bungee jumping." Bailey Yun's mouth twitched. "Little brat, you haven't even grown your teeth yet. What bungee jumping? Change it." Xiao Bao bared his teeth and glared at him. "You're discriminating against my age." Bailey Yun also glared at him. "Your bones haven't fully developed yet. Bungee jumping can easily cause your bones to fall off. Be a good boy and change it." Xiao Bao's beautiful eyes darted around. Suddenly, there was a flash of light. "Then let's go to the horror town." Bailey Yun's face darkened. "What's there to see in the horror town?" "Change it." "I heard that ghosts can jump out of the horror town to scare people. It's so fun. Some of my classmates have been here before. Let's go in and take a look." Xiao Bao blinked his big eyes and acted cute. Hearing this, Bailey Yun could not agree to it. "No, such a young child. What if he gets scared by the horror town?" Xiao Bao stared at him for a while and suddenly laughed. "Second uncle, are you scared?" "Scared? What a joke. Why would I be scared?" Bailey Yun patted his chest righteously. "Your second uncle has the most guts. Then let's go to the horror town. If you don't agree, it means that you're a coward." Xiao Bao looked at him proudly with an "I've seen through you" expression. Bailey Yun gritted his teeth and rubbed his cheeks. "Okay, let's go. I'm not scared of you." He held Xiao Bao's hand and walked forward. Xiao Bao covered his mouth and laughed secretly. So second uncle was afraid of ghosts. The horror town was not just for show. It was so scary. The ghosts and monsters here weren't rigid stone sculptures. They could move. In the dark room, the sound effects of horror movies were playing. From time to time, white ghosts would float above or behind them. There were also ghosts with long hair combing their long hair in front of a mirror. The mirror reflected a bloody face. Bailey Yun was about to vomit. He held Xiao Bao's hand tighter and tighter. Cold sweat broke out on his back. He quickened his pace, intending to get out of here as soon as possible. Suddenly, an arm patted him heavily on the shoulder. His body trembled. He did not dare to look back and said with a trembling voice, "Xiao Bao, look. What's behind me?" There was no response. "Xiao Bao?" Bailey Yun's heart tightened. He could not care about anything else. He quickly turned around and lowered his head. Xiao Bao was standing in front of him. He was holding his right hand, and his left hand was holding a small snake. The small snake was still wiggling. Bailey Yun shouted anxiously, "Xiao Bao, throw it away." Xiao Bao chuckled. "Second uncle, don't be nervous. This is fake. Look, doesn't it look real?" Bailey Yun bent down to look at the snake in his hand. It was indeed fake. He relaxed and could not help but grumble, "Of all the things to play with, you had to play with a snake. You almost scared me to death." As he spoke, he tugged at Xiao Bao's arm. "Let's go. Let's get out of here." After taking a few steps, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. "Xiao Bao, who was patting my shoulder just now?" Xiao Bao was very surprised. Did someone pat your shoulder? I didn't see anyone. Bailey Yun's body froze. All the hair on his body stood on end. He felt that the place was gloomy and cold. He looked around suspiciously. There was no one. Could there really be ghosts in the horror city? Bailey Yun was frightened by the thought that appeared in his mind. He suddenly bent down, picked up Xiao Bao, and ran out quickly. Second uncle, what are you doing? Don't run. Xiao Bao was held tightly by his arms. He could barely breathe. This place is gloomy. It's too strange. Let's get out of here quickly. Bailey Yun hurriedly explained and continued to run forward. Don't run. There are no ghosts. Xiao Bao knew that his timid second uncle must have been frightened by the hand that patted him just now. Hey, Bailey Yun, don't run. It's me. Suddenly, a familiar voice entered Bailey Yun's ears. He held Xiao Bao in his arms and stopped. He saw a white figure running towards them. Bailey Yun, it's me, Li Duobao. I didn't expect you to be so timid. Bailey Yun was so angry that he almost vomited blood. 10 minutes later, the three of them were sitting in a hot drink shop in the amusement park. Bailey Yun's face was gloomy like the sky before a storm. He used a straw to poke the lemon in his lemon tea. He completely ignored Li Duobao and Xiao Bao. Come and see. Xinwu 799. Chapter 324. Li Duobao and Xiao Bao looked at each other. Both of them stuck out their tongues at the same time and made an expression that said, "We're in trouble." Li Duobao's round apple face scrunched up and she said pitifully, "Bailey Yun, don't be angry. It's my fault. I shouldn't have teamed up with Xiao Bao to scare you." It turned out that Li Duobao had recognized Bailey Yun when she was playing in the City of Horrors. She wanted to prank him and tease him, so she signaled Xiao Bao not to expose her. Then she purposely patted Bailey Yun's shoulder and hid behind a stone statue. Hence, when Bailey Yun turned around, he didn't see anything. Bailey Yun poked his lemon hard and ignored her. Li Duobao pouted and turned to look at Xiao Bao. She winked and said, "What should I do? He's ignoring me." Xiao Bao shrugged and sighed silently. "I sympathize with you, but I don't know what to do either." Li Duobao bit her lip awkwardly. A few seconds later, she smiled happily and said, "Bailey Yun, what else do you want to play? Let's play together." Xiao Bao was drinking a drink and almost choked by her jumping nerves. Bailey Yun looked up and glanced at her coldly. His tone was extremely displeased. "I'm still angry." "Oh, I'm sorry. Don't be angry. A man has to be magnanimous." Li Duobao put her hands together and smiled ingratiatingly. "How about this? Let's have lunch together. I'll treat you as an apology, okay?" Bailey Yun glared at her. "You still want to eat hot pot?" She quickly waved her hands. "No hot pot, no hot pot. You can eat whatever you want," he said coldly, looking down on her. "Really? Aren't you afraid that we'll be greedy and make you go bankrupt? It's just a meal. We won't go bankrupt." Li Duobao laughed foolishly. Xiao Bao could not help but facepalm. He had a premonition that a little white rabbit had jumped into a trap. Sure enough, Bailey Yun suddenly grinned. He put down the straw in his hand and nodded contentedly. "Well, you treat us at noon. The location is Century Brocade." Century Brocade was the best hotel in a city. The dishes there were ridiculously expensive. Li Duobao almost fell on the table and looked at Bailey Yun with tears in his eyes. He looked very pitiful. Bailey Yun's lips curled into an elegant and charming smile. His voice was extremely gentle. "What's wrong?" Li Duobao was speechless. He pursed his lips and said, "It's nothing. Century Brocade it is." She really wanted to slap her own mouth right now. She would really go bankrupt from eating this meal. Because she was worried about her wallet, Li Duobao wasn't interested in the following entertainment activities. When Bailey Yun saw this, the corner of his lips curled up. This girl's emotions were written all over her face, and it was really fun to tease her. He was completely unaware that the scene of him peeking at Li Duobao had fallen into Xiao Bao's eyes. When they came out of the amusement park, it was already lunchtime. Bailey Yun drove while Li Duobao accompanied Xiao Bao in the back seat. She thought that Bailey Yun would spontaneously drive the car to Century Brocade, so she didn't pay attention to the route. Instead, she played a game with Xiao Bao. When the car stopped, she looked out of the window and said in surprise, "This doesn't seem to be century brocade. Bailey Yun, you're going the wrong way." "Fool, do you really think I'm going to kill you?" Bailey Yun opened the car door for her and smiled. "Hurry up and get out of the car. The food in this private restaurant is very good." "Oh, okay." Li Duobao jumped out of the car first and reached out to carry Xiao Bao. Xiao Bao refused. "No need, I can get out by myself." Xiao Bao jumped out of the car and walked in front like a little adult with her chest puffed out and her head raised. Li Duobao looked at Xiao Bao and then at Bailey Yun. "You and your brother must look a lot alike." Bailey Yun was surprised. "Why do you say that?" She giggled. "Because Xiao Bao looks a lot like you. In the end, it's still because you look a lot like your brother, isn't it?" Bailey Yun's expression froze. "Let's go." Xiao Bao has already gone in. In the private room, Bailey Yun and the other two had just finished ordering when Xia Dong called. She sounded a little worried. Yun, are you guys okay?" "We're fine. I took Xiao Bao to the amusement park. We're at the restaurant now and we're planning to eat." "Okay, I got it. Then you guys eat. I'll hang up first." Bailey Yun glanced at Xiao Bao. "It's your mommy." Xiao Bao said, "Oh." Li Duobao realized that the atmosphere between them was a little strange. Her gaze shifted between the two of them and finally landed on Bailey Yun. She smiled and said, "Bailey Yun, when are you going back to New York? Maybe we can even be on the same plane." Bailey Yun took a sip of tea and said indifferently, "The time hasn't been set yet. There's something I need to deal with." There was a moment of silence and the atmosphere was a little awkward. Xiao Bao suddenly looked up at Li Duobao and an innocent and cute smile appeared on her little face. "Sister, do you have a boyfriend?" Li Duobao smiled embarrassedly. "Not yet." "Sister, you're so beautiful. There must be a lot of people pursuing you." The little guy's eyes were bright and full of gossip. Bailey Yun suddenly put down his teacup and looked at Li Duobao, obviously waiting for her answer. "That." Li Duobao rubbed her nose awkwardly. "You can say that. Sometimes on the plane, I meet some passengers who give me their business cards. Sister, you're so popular. Why don't you date them?" Bailey Yun's eyes moved and his thin lips pursed. "I don't think I feel anything." Li Duobao had a complicated expression on her face. She was a little distressed and a little confused. "I don't know what's wrong. I just don't feel anything." "Oh." Xiao Bao nodded in understanding. Her bright eyes glanced at Bailey Yun, who seemed to be deep in thought. She had already guessed something. The waiter served the dishes and the topic didn't continue. After they were full, Li Duobao called the waiter over and was about to pay the bill. However, Bailey Yun was one step ahead of her and handed the bank card to the waiter. Li Duobao didn't want to. She took the card and was about to return it to him. "Didn't we agree that I'll treat you?" "Stop fooling around. You can treat me next time." Bailey Yun handed the card back to the waiter. It didn't look good pushing it back and forth. Li Duobao didn't insist and put away her card. "All right then, I'll treat you next time." Xiao Bao cast a disdainful glance at Bailey Yun. It was that simple. He had laid the foundation for the next date. A love expert was indeed a love expert. In the next second, Xiao Bao frowned because he thought of a serious problem. If his second uncle was really his father, then what was going on between him and Suzuki Chien Sakura? Should he support his biological parents being together, or should he support Bailey Yun and Li Duobao being together? Damn it, why was he thinking so much? If Bailey Yun was really his father, he should hate him. Why did he care so much about him? After eating, they strolled around the streets. The two adults and the child looked like a family of three. When Li Duobao saw the ice cream shop, she held Xiao Bao's hand and ran forward quickly. The two of them leaned on the glass counter and stared at the beautiful ice cream inside. Then, they turned around in unison, blinked their beautiful big eyes, and said in unison, "I want to eat ice cream." Bailey Yun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Li Duobao, how old are you? You're still acting like a child. And you, Xiao Bao, why are you eating ice cream in the middle of winter? Be careful not to catch a cold." Li Duobao and Xiao Bao looked at each other and nodded firmly, completely ignoring Bailey Yun. Li Duobao took out a bill from her wallet and said, 2 ice creams, 1 strawberry flavor, 1. She looked down at Xiao Bao. Xiao Bao, what flavor do you want? Xiao Bao smiled sweetly. Pineapple flavor. 1 strawberry flavor, 1 pineapple flavor, thank you. Li Duobao handed the bill to the cashier. Hey, you two, how dare you ignore me? Bailey Yun took a few steps forward and stared at the two of them with an unhappy expression. Next to them, an old lady who was buying ice cream with her grandson said with a smile, Young man, if your wife and child want to eat ice cream, let them eat it. It's okay to eat it once in a while. Li Duobao's face turned red and she stuttered as she explained, Andy, I'm not, wife. Bailey Yun suddenly interrupted her. On his handsome face, there was a gentle smile. Since you want to eat it, then eat it. Andy's right. It's okay to eat it once in a while. That's right, girl. Your husband is so handsome, huh? The old lady laughed boldly. Li Duobao's cheeks were red. She wanted to explain, but Bailey Yun had already taken the ice cream from the cashier and put it in her mouth. Wife, your ice cream. Io, the two of you are so sweet. The old lady smiled like a flower. Auntie, we'll be leaving first. I hope you're in a good mood today. Bailey Yun smiled brightly at the old lady. He dragged Li Duobao and Xiao Bao out of the ice cream shop in a hurry. What are you doing? Outside the ice cream shop, Li Duobao shook off Bailey Yun's hand and said angrily, Why didn't you let me explain? Why did you let people misunderstand? Bailey Yun raised his eyebrows. There was a mischievous smile on his lips. Explain? Do you think it's necessary to explain so much to someone you don't know? Of course it's necessary. I'm an unmarried girl. I was misunderstood to be married. I also have such a big child. Shouldn't I explain? Bailey Yun's face turned ugly. Do you think that Xiao Bao and I have insulted your reputation? Do you discriminate against single men with children? Of course not. Bailey Yun, can you be more reasonable? We're not talking about the same thing, okay? I'm the one being unreasonable. I shouldn't have pestered you. Are you satisfied now? I don't want to talk to you. You're pissing me off. Xiao Bao licked her ice cream silently. She did not intend to get involved in their boring quarrel. Awesome novel, Shinwu 799. Chapter 325. It was obvious that his second uncle had fallen in love with Li Duobao and was worried that Li Duobao would discriminate against him if he was his child. Xiao Bao felt that he was very pitiful. Li Duobao pouted angrily and left Bailey Yun and Xiao Bao behind without even greeting them. Then he rushed forward mindlessly. Bailey Yun was also angry. He suddenly grabbed Xiao Bao's arm and walked in the opposite direction. Let's go home. Xiao Bao looked back at Li Duobao's angry back and sighed helplessly. Second uncle, are you really not going to chase after her? Chase after what? What's there to chase after? Bailey Yun was so angry that smoke was coming out of his head. He despised Xiao Bao for walking too slowly, so he simply picked him up and walked forward quickly. Xiao Bao felt even more helpless and dragged out his voice. Second uncle, you're going in the wrong direction. Your car is parked over there. He stretched out his finger and pointed in the direction that Li Duobao had run off in. Bailey Yun suddenly stopped in his tracks and turned around stiffly. He said stubbornly, I know. I just wanted to test your sense of direction. Xiao Bao curled his lips in disdain. Tisk, Bailey Yun stuffed Xiao Bao into the front passenger seat and stepped on the accelerator. After driving for a short distance, he saw Li Duobao walking alone on the street. She was wearing a white coat and a white woolen hat. She looked like a snowball. He couldn't help but slow down. Xiao Bao looked back at the snowball that was getting farther and farther away. He said maturely, Second uncle, are you sure you don't want to stop? Bailey Yun snorted. This is an adult's business. Don't bother a kid like you. Xiao Bao curled his lips. You know that you're an adult too? You're even more childish than a kid like me. You were clearly in the wrong just now. Bailey Yun paused. Was it really my fault? Xiao Bao rolled her eyes. It's your fault. There's no need to doubt it. Bailey Yun's lips tightened. He suddenly sped up and the car rushed out. Seeing that he had reached the next intersection, he suddenly turned the steering wheel, turned the car around, and drove back. In less than 5 minutes, the Ferrari stopped in front of Li Duobao. Li Duobao heard the sharp sound of brakes and subconsciously looked back. He didn't expect Bailey Yun to jump out of the car. She bit her lip and pretended not to see him. She turned around and continued to walk forward. Bailey Yun ran behind her and grabbed her arm. "What are you doing?" She turned around and glared at him. Bailey Yun frowned. "Stop messing around. Get in the car." She snorted. "Didn't you say you wouldn't pester me anymore? Why do you care so much about me?" He suddenly tightened his grip on her arm and said calmly, "It's not easy to get a taxi here. As a gentleman, I won't leave a lady halfway." Li Duobao said angrily, "This is China. You don't need to follow those gentlemanly principles, so you don't have to care about me. Let go." "You," Bailey Yun frowned and was about to reprimand her again. However, when he saw that she lowered her head and half of her fair neck was exposed, the anger in his heart miraculously dissipated. He tried his best to soften his tone. "Stop messing around. It's cold outside. Get in the car." She didn't know why, but when she heard his gentle voice coaxing her, she felt a strange feeling in her heart. She looked up and suddenly met his deep gaze. His lips curved and he said gently, "It was my fault just now. Don't be angry anymore." Her heart suddenly skipped a beat. He suddenly held her hand and led her to the car. She forgot to struggle and followed his footsteps. Her eyes stared at their intertwined hands and her heart was a little flustered, but also a little sweet. The car door suddenly opened and Xiaobao jumped down from the front passenger seat. He chuckled and said, "Sister, you sit in front. I'll sit in the back." He wiggled his little butt and climbed into the back seat. Li Duobao glanced at Bailey Yun and pursed her lips. She pushed his hand away and bent down to get into the back seat as well. She sat beside Xiaobao. Xiaobao had a habit of taking an afternoon nap. Not long after the car started, he felt sleepy and dozed off in his seat. Li Duobao saw that he was sleeping so hard and carried him into her arms. Not only did the little guy not wake up, he even adjusted his sleeping position and slept soundly in her arms. Li Duobao lowered her head and looked at the little head that was pressed against her chest. Her cheeks quietly blushed. Bailey Yun saw the situation in the back seat from the rearview mirror and suddenly felt a little jealous of Xiaobao. Li Duobao looked up and happened to see Bailey Yun's burning gaze through the rearview mirror. She blushed even more and coughed uncomfortably. She wanted to say something to break the awkwardness. You seem to be very afraid of ghosts?" Forget it. Pretend I didn't ask." She frowned in annoyance. She was so stupid. Why did she bring it up? Her expression pleased Bailey Yun. His eyes were filled with a smile and the corners of his lips curled up. "I've been very afraid of ghosts since I was young." Li Duobao didn't expect him to answer. She blinked and asked, "Why?" "Ghosts are all fake." The smile in Bailey Yun's eyes faded. "It's a long story. Since you've seen the gossip reports about me, you should know that I'm the illegitimate son of the Bailey family." Li Duobao grunted and quickly said, "If it's not convenient for you to say, then forget it." He looked ahead and said in a calm voice, "When I was 5 years old, I was brought back to the Bailey family. I slept alone in a very big room. It was cold and gloomy. I missed my mother, but I didn't dare to cry because I would be hated by my family." Li Duobao looked at his handsome face through the rearview mirror. His expression was indifferent as if he was talking about someone else's story. She felt a little sour in her heart. He pursed his thin lips and continued, "One night, it was raining heavily. There was no one at home. They had all gone to attend old Master Bai's birthday party. I was hiding under the blanket alone. Suddenly, I saw a scary face appear by the window. Lightning flashed and I saw that the face was covered in blood. A pair of black eyes were staring at me." Li Duobao was shocked. "What happened next?" Bailey Yun gripped the steering wheel tightly and his voice changed. "Later, I heard that someone had invaded that night and wanted to steal something valuable. In the end, he accidentally fell and injured his head, so his face was covered in blood. He didn't give up and climbed up to the second floor, which was outside my window. In the end, I found him, she asked nervously. What about you? How are you? He was stunned. After a long time, his voice returned to normal. I was so scared that I screamed and then fainted. After that, I became afraid of things like ghosts. Li Duobao bit her lip and felt a little uncomfortable. A 5 or 6-year-old child was at the age where he was full of fantasies. It was inevitable that he would let his imagination run wild when he lived alone in an empty house. Coupled with his family's neglect of him, his young heart was even more sensitive. When he saw a face covered in blood, he mistook it for a ghost and was left with a psychological shadow. She said impulsively, "I'm not afraid of ghosts. If you're scared in the future, you can look for me." His eyes were filled with warmth and his lips curved. "What if I'm so scared that I can't sleep in the middle of the night?" She said without hesitation, "Call me. I'll tell you a joke." He chuckled. "You said it. Don't forget your promise." She nodded. "I never go back on my words." He looked at her eyes from the rearview mirror. Her round eyes were filled with determination and his heart couldn't help but feel warm. Almost instinctively, he asked in a low voice, "Li Duobao, will you accept a single man with a child?" Li Duobao was stunned. "Are you referring to a divorced man with a child?" He pursed his thin lips and his eyes flickered. "I'm not married, but I have a child." "There." She smiled and touched her nose. "I've never thought about this." The light in his eyes gradually dimmed. She found it strange. "Why are you suddenly asking this?" His thin lips pursed. "Nothing. I'm just asking." "Oh." The two of them didn't speak for the rest of the journey. The car stopped below Li Duobao's building. She looked down at Xiao Bao, who was sleeping soundly in her arms. She couldn't bear to wake him up. She looked up at Bailey Yun and said in a low voice, "Why don't I sit for a while longer?" Bailey Yun replied, "Okay. Sorry to trouble you." The two of them sat in the car in silence. Xiao Bao slept soundly. After about 10 minutes, he rubbed his sleepy eyes and got up from Li Duobao's arms. "You're finally awake." Li Duobao smiled and ruffled his hair. Xiao Bao looked out of the window, stretched and asked, "Sister, are you here?" "Yeah." "Do you want to go upstairs and have a seat?" "Okay." Xiao Bao jumped down from her arms. "Another day, Xiao Bao. Don't you have something to do?" Bailey Yun stared at Xiao Bao with a burning gaze. Xiao Bao blinked. "But I forgot. Sister, we still have something to do. We have to go back first. We'll go to your house to play next time when we have time." "Okay." Li Duobao liked Xiao Bao very much. She rubbed his pink cheeks. "Goodbye." "Goodbye, sister." Xiao Bao smiled and waved. "Second uncle, why didn't you seize such a good opportunity?" After Li Duobao's figure disappeared, Xiao Bao jumped to the front passenger seat and poked Bailey Yun's arm. Bailey Yun snorted on his head. "What does a child know?" "I know. You're worried that if I were your son, she would despise you, right?" Xiao Bao slapped his hand away and rolled his eyes at him. "Aren't you a self-proclaimed Casanova? When did you lose so much confidence?" Bailey Yun was stunned and smiled bitterly. "You seem to have accepted the current situation." Xiao Bao sighed maturely. "I've cried and made a fuss. My life has already been decided. What else can I do? Anyway, I've already thought it through." Bailey Yun stared into his eyes. "I didn't expect you to be so open-minded at such a young age." Xiao Bao looked at him as if he was an idiot. "What else can I do? Be sad for the rest of my life? I'll be the one suffering, won't I?" Bailey Yun's lips moved. There was a sentence that reached his throat, but he swallowed it. Xiao Bao stared at him and asked, "Second uncle, did you go to my father's office last year?" Bailey Yun thought for a while and said, "There was a period of time last year when I worked at your father's company. Going to his office was a common occurrence." "Have you ever sat in his chair?" He touched his chin. Yes, his chair was very comfortable. Xiao Bao clenched his fists nervously. It seemed that the hair he picked up in the office was most likely Bailey Yun's. Bailey Yun did not know what he was thinking at the moment. He hesitated for a moment and said, "Xiao Bao, if the test results show, will you hate me?" Xiao Bao's dark eyes were cold and his voice was cold. "What's going on between you and Suzuki Chisakura?" Bailey Yun suddenly felt ashamed of his past. He was too embarrassed to speak, but in front of Xiao Bao, he did not want to hide anything. He gritted his teeth and said, "I've done a lot of ridiculous things in the past, especially after I was sent to America. I took drugs and went to jail because of a fight. I've had many girlfriends, and Suzuki Chisakura was one of them." Xiao Bao said coldly, "Did you know about her pregnancy? If you knew, would you take responsibility?" Bailey Yun's eyes were filled with pain. He was silent for a long time before he said, "If it was me 6 years ago, I wouldn't." Xiao Bao sneered. "The current you wouldn't either." Bailey Yun tried to reason with him. "The current me may have a lot of shortcomings, but at least I won't be promiscuous. Unless I like her, I won't touch her. Since she's someone I like, I'll naturally take responsibility." Xiao Bao crossed his arms. He was unbelievably calm. "So, even if Suzuki Chisakura comes looking for you now, you won't take responsibility because you don't like her, right?" In front of him, Bailey Yun felt as if he had been stripped of all his pretense. Although he was unwilling, he had to admit that Xiao Bao's words hit the nail on the head. He nodded stiffly. Xiao Bao laughed mockingly. "In the eyes of adults, what are children?" "Xiao Bao, forget it. It's too early to talk about this. Let's wait for the test results to come out." Xiao Bao turned his back to him and built an invisible barrier between the two of them. They did not tell anyone about the paternity test. Xia Dong wanted to ask Xiao Bao about their whereabouts today, but Xiao Bao was very tight-lipped. She had no choice. After thinking about it for a long time, she was still worried. She called Mika Kito and asked him to investigate Suzuki Chisakura's background. She felt that this woman was not simple and was worried that she would play tricks. The next day, Bailey's family received a letter from Suzuki Chisakura's lawyer. Her lawyer said that Suzuki Chisakura had filed a lawsuit in court, intending to fight for Xiao Bao's custody through legal means. Bailey's family was furious. Behind Xiao Bao's back, the old madam scolded Suzuki Chisakura. Bailey Han hired the most famous lawyer in a city at a high price to fight this case. Bailey Yun was also furious. However, he did not act rashly. He was waiting for the results of the paternity test. Awesome novel, Hongcha 866. Chapter 326. The results of the paternity test were out. Bailey Yun and Xiao Bao were 99% related by blood. In other words, they were biological father and son. Bailey Yun sat in the driver's seat, holding the report with both hands. He did not react for a long time. Xiao Bao already knew that this would be the result. He was very calm and looked at him coldly. "What do you plan to do now?" Bailey Yun's fingers clenched tightly. He crumpled the report into a ball and threw it into the glove compartment. He did not know how to face Xiao Bao, so he did not look at him. His gaze was unfocused as he stared ahead. His voice was dry. "Do you want to be with me or your mommy?" Xiao Bao was silent for a long time. "Is there any possibility of you two being together?" Bailey Yun's fingers tightened on the steering wheel. The veins on the back of his hand were throbbing. He had never been so embarrassed before. He opened his mouth and squeezed out a few words. "I'm sorry." Sorry, it was impossible for them to be together. In fact, Xiao Bao had already expected this. He could tell that Bailey Yun had feelings for Li Duobao. However, no matter how smart he was just a child. He wanted to have a complete family with his biological parents. Xiao Bao turned around. He did not want to see him anymore. His big eyes were filled with tears. He said softly, "Whatever. I'll be with whoever wins the lawsuit." "Xiao Bao, don't say things out of anger." Bailey Yun suddenly turned his shoulders. When he saw the tears in Xiao Bao's eyes, he was stunned. Then he hugged his weak little body tightly. His voice was pained. "I'm sorry, Xiao Bao. I'm very sorry." Xiao Bao's tears fell. He said in a sobbing voice, "What do you have to be sorry for? Anyway, I'm just the product of your youth. Give me back my parents. I don't want you. I don't want you at all." I'm sorry. It's all my fault." Bailey Yun's eyes were also filled with tears. He hugged Xiao Bao tightly. "Xiao Bao, follow me. Although I don't know how to be a good father, I will work hard and make it up to you. Trust me. Xiao Bao wailed in his arms. As he cried, he pounded on his back and cried, I don't want you guys, I don't want you guys. Bailey Yun felt terrible. He regretted the absurd things he had done in the past. Xiao Bao, listen to me. If you follow me, you won't have to leave your parents. You even have a father who loves you, okay? Just follow me, okay? He held Xiao Bao's face in his hands. His eyes were filled with apprehension and anticipation. He was practically begging him. Xiao Bao, let me make it up to you, okay? Xiao Bao looked at him in fear and trepidation. Her tears fell even more fiercely. She bit her lower lip and neither shook nor nodded. She remained silent. The father and son were in a deadlock. The melodious ringing of the phone broke the stiff atmosphere. Bailey Yun maintained his original position and did not intend to answer the phone. However, the caller had great perseverance and persisted in calling over and over again. In the end, he could not take it anymore and grabbed the phone. When he saw the caller ID, he saw that it was a string of unfamiliar numbers. He was furious and said fiercely, Who is this? Suzuki Chisakura's seductive voice came through. Yun, why are you so angry? Who provoked you? Bailey Yun's body stiffened and his tone became even worse. Suzuki Chisakura, what exactly do you want? Don't you know what I want? Bailey Yun glanced at Xiao Bao and strode out of the car. He slammed the door and walked to the side of the road. He said coldly, Why do you have to go to court? Don't you know that this will hurt Xiao Bao? It's your family that's too ruthless. I just want my son back. Is that wrong? Bailey Yun's eyes burned with anger. If you really care about your son, why did you abandon him? Suzuki Chisakura was also angry. What right do you have to criticize me? Even if I'm irresponsible, I'm still 100 times better than you as a father. Bailey Yun was so angry that he almost threw the phone away. He roared, I'm warning you, withdraw the lawsuit as soon as possible. Suzuki Chisakura gritted her teeth and suppressed her anger. She sneered. If you agree to my conditions, I'll withdraw the lawsuit. What conditions? First, you have to marry me. Second, our family of 3 will go to Japan. Dream on. I won't marry you, and I definitely won't give Xiao Bao to you. Bailey Yun wanted nothing more than to drag Suzuki Chisakura over from the other end of the phone and give her a good beating. Although he never hit women, he didn't mind making an exception. Suzuki Chisakura laughed. Actually, I'm very curious. If the old madam and your father know that Xiao Bao is actually your son, do you think they'll agree to my conditions? Bailey Yun's heart suddenly tightened. He was on guard. What are you going to do? She giggled. I'm on my way to your house now. What do you think I'm going to do? Bailey Yun was furious. Suzuki Chisakura, stop it right now. That's strange. You're not my husband. Why should I listen to you? Alright, don't be angry. Come back quickly. Maybe our family of 3 will have a chance to reunite at your house. Suzuki Chisakura, hey, the *M woman, how dare you hang up on me? Bai Liyun angrily threw the phone onto the road. Coincidentally, a car sped past and ruthlessly ran over the phone. The poor phone was completely scrapped. He jumped into the car angrily. His face was livid. He stepped on the accelerator and the car sped away. Xiao Bao saw his angry face and puffed up his cheeks. What did that woman say? Bailey Yun's voice was filled with uncontrollable anger. She wants to expose our relationship. To great-grandmother and the rest. On the other side, at Bailey's old residence, Suzuki Chisakura walked gracefully into the living room under the guidance of the butler. She sat calmly opposite the old madam. The old madam's expression was ugly as she said coldly, Miss Suzuki, what brings you here today? Suzuki Chisakura smiled faintly. Old madam, Bailey's family is reputable after all. It won't look good if we go to court. I intend to settle this privately. What do you think? The old madam's eyes were sharp. You were the one who went to court. Now you want to settle this privately? What do you take Bailey's family for? Old madam, don't be so agitated. I have my concerns too. She chuckled and changed the topic. Why don't you listen to my conditions first? The old madam said stiffly, "All right, I'll listen to them." Suzuki Chisakura smiled. "It's not difficult to get me to give up Xiao Bao's custody. As long as Bailey Yun marries me and agrees to live with me in Japan, I'll withdraw the lawsuit." The old madam was stunned. "What does this have to do with Yun?" Suzuki Chisakura covered her mouth and laughed. "So you really don't know? Xiao Bao is Yun and my son." "What?" The old madam was shocked. Her eyes widened in disbelief. "How could this be? 6 years ago, Ayun and I met in the United States. We had a short relationship. I got pregnant and went back to Japan to give birth to Xiao Bao, but he didn't know about it," Suzuki Chisakura explained calmly. The old madam placed her hand on her chest. It was obvious that this matter was too much for her. She couldn't catch her breath for a long time. "Old madam, what do you think of my suggestion?" Suzuki Chisakura calmly took a sip of tea as if she hadn't said the shocking news. The old madam stroked her chest and forced herself to calm down. She frowned. "You said that Xiao Bao is your and Yun's child. What evidence do you have? If you don't believe me, we can do a paternity test. Or, Yun has already done a paternity test with Xiao Bao. When Yun comes back, you can ask him. Then you'll know if I'm telling the truth." Suzuki Chisakura had told Bailey Yun about Xiao Bao's background in advance. It wasn't unreasonable. She had already planned everything. She had calculated the first and the second step very well. The old madam was, after all, experienced and knowledgeable. She quickly realized this point. She stared at Suzuki Chisakura with her deep eyes. "If what you said is true, then you took Bailey's family to court to force Yun to marry you. The older the ginger, the spicier it is. Old madam saw through my little trick at a glance. Bailey's family is a prestigious family in a city. Some people are envious, some are jealous. You don't know how many pairs of eyes are watching you. If there's a scandal in the Bailey's family, and the second young master's illegitimate son is adopted by the eldest young master's wife, and the birth mother comes to ask for custody of the child many years later, don't you think it will attract a lot of attention?" The old madam's eyes were burning with anger. She said coldly, "Suzuki Chisakura, have you ever thought about who will be hurt the most if this matter becomes an uproar? Xiao Bao. Have you ever thought about him?" Suzuki Chisakura stopped smiling and looked indifferent. "Xiao Bao is my son. Of course I think about him. He needs a complete family. If I don't do this, will you agree to let Bailey Yun marry me?" The old madam was so angry that she pointed at her nose. You're just doing it for your own selfish desires. You don't deserve to be Xiao Bao's mother." Suzuki Chisakura sneered. "If I don't deserve to be Xiao Bao's mother, then I wouldn't have given birth to him 5 years ago. For him, I've suffered so much. Who among you can understand?" Her words not only shocked the old madam, but also shocked Bailey Yun, who appeared at the door with Xiao Bao in his arms. Before the old madam could speak, Bailey Yun roared angrily, "Suzuki Chisakura, shut up." Suzuki Chisakura's body stiffened and she slowly turned her head. She saw Bailey Yun appear at the door with Xiao Bao in his arms. He was sweating profusely, and it was obvious that he had run in a hurry. Xiao Bao was staring at her with a pair of cold eyes. It was obvious that her words had hurt him. A hint of panic flashed across her eyes. "Xiao Bao, listen to me. I didn't mean it that way." Xiao Bao lowered his eyes and ignored her. He jumped down from Bailey Yun's arms and said politely to the old madam, "Great-grandmother, I'll go back to my room first. Attention, Shinwu 799. Chapter 327. Old Madame Gu's eyes were filled with worry. "Okay, good boy. Go up quickly." Xiao Bao didn't look at anyone else. He turned around and walked upstairs with his head held high. When he was out of their sight, tears quickly gathered in his eyes. He raised his hand and wiped them away. "Xiao Bao." Xia Dong saw him in the corridor and jogged over to him. She gently wiped his tears. "Xiao Bao, what's wrong?" "Mom." Xiao Bao suddenly threw himself into her arms and hugged her tightly. He couldn't control his tears any longer. "Mom, why did you adopt me in the first place?" "Because the first time I saw you, I felt that you were my son." Xia Dong kissed his cheek and carried him to his room. She whispered, Xiaobao, your father and I will always be your parents. Yeah. He leaned his head against her chest. It was very warm. It was this chest that sheltered him from the wind and rain. In his heart, she would always be his mother. Xia Dong carried him back to his room. She stroked his soft hair and said gently, "Baby, are you tired? Do you want to rest for a while?" Xiaobao tugged at her clothes and looked at her pitifully with his big wet eyes. "Mom, stay with me." "Okay, it's rare for my son to be so obedient." Xia Dong smiled as she tucked him into the blanket. She also got in and hugged him. He puffed up his cheeks and muttered unhappily, "I've always been very obedient." Yes, you're obedient." Xia Dong's eyes curved. She stroked his pink little face. "Close your eyes and sleep for a while. When you wake up, all your worries will be gone." "Mom, you're lying. I'm not a child anymore." Xia Dong snorted. "In my eyes, you'll always be a child." He pouted and did not refute. His dim eyes gradually lit up, and he said coquettishly, "Mom, I want to listen to a lullaby." "Okay, I'll sing it for you." "Gigai, close your eyes." Xia Dong stroked his hair and hummed a lullaby softly. He didn't know how many times he hummed it, but his breathing gradually stabilized. She stopped humming and turned sideways to look at the sleeping little fellow, her eyes overflowing with warmth. Downstairs, the conversation between the old madam and the other two had reached a stalemate. Bailey Yun was already on the verge of exploding. The old lady gave him a look to stop him from speaking again, and ordered Suzuki Chisakura to leave. "Miss Suzuki, we will consider your conditions. Please go back first." "All right, old madam. Let me remind you that the court will be in session in a week. You have to make a decision as soon as possible." With that, Suzuki Chisakura politely bowed to the old madam and Bailey Yun before leaving. The old madam supported her forehead with one hand, looking exhausted. "Ah, Yun, is what that woman said true? Is Xiaobao really your son?" Bailey Yun lowered his eyes. The old madam was stunned for a moment before she sighed slowly. "You heard her conditions. What do you think?" Bailey Yun did not hesitate. "I won't marry her, and I won't live with her in Japan. Xiaobao's custody can't be handed over to her either." The old madam looked at him. "Are you ready to raise Xiaobao?" Bailey Yun looked serious. "Grandma, I know I've done a lot of ridiculous things in the past. I've thought it through these 2 days. It's time for me to pay for my past absurdity. Whether you agree or not, I'll fight for the custody of Xiaobao. He's my son." He emphasized the last sentence with a serious look in his eyes. The old madam's eyes gradually filled with admiration. She nodded. "Ah, Yun, you've finally matured. Don't worry. As long as you're determined, the Bailey family will fight for Xiaobao's custody no matter what price we have to pay." If the old madam still had some misgivings before, she no longer had any. After all, Xiaobao was still a descendant of the Bailey family. She couldn't be happier. The old madam quickly announced the news to the whole family. Everyone felt the same way. At first, they were shocked, but after thinking about it carefully, they felt happy. No matter what, Xiaobao was still a descendant of the Bailey family. After everyone calmed down, they began to discuss how to deal with Suzuki Chisakura. Bailey Han said, "Lawyer Ian said that if the case is purely about the adoption, we have a high chance of winning. However, if Suzuki Chisakura turns her attention to fighting for custody with the child's father, the outcome will be difficult to predict because the law generally favors the mother." The old madam nodded. "That's what I'm worried about." Suzuki Chisakura made her intentions clear today. She'll fight for custody at all costs. She'll definitely make a big fuss about a Yun. Bailey Yun frowned. "She knows us like the back of her hand, but we don't even know her background. It looks like we're already at a disadvantage." Bailey Han smiled. "Don't worry. We'll find out about Suzuki Chisakura's background very soon. Xia has already asked Mika Kito to help investigate her. We'll get the results by tomorrow at the latest." Bailey Yun relaxed his frown. "As long as we produce evidence to prove that she's not a good mother and can't raise Xiaobao, the law will be on our side." While the Bailey family was discussing countermeasures, Suzuki Chisakura made her move. She hired someone to spread the news online. The title was, Rich Second Young Master's Illegitimate Child Was Adopted by Sister-in-Law. Shocking inside story exposed. Although the name of the protagonist was hidden in the post, it described the protagonist's family relationship and marital status in detail. A few months ago, Xia Dong and Bailey Han's marriage had caused a stir. Everyone knew about them, so it was easy to connect Xia Dong and Bailey Yun with the protagonist in the post. Some people even speculated that Bailey Yun and Xia Dong had an affair, so Xia Dong was raising the illegitimate child for him. After the post became popular online, it quickly attracted the attention of the media. At this time, someone with ulterior motives exposed the lawsuit between Suzuki Chisakura and the Bailey family over Xiaobao's custody. Outside the lawyer's building, a reporter ran into Suzuki Chisakura. She appeared in public as a very loving mother who had been searching for her son for many years. Her eyes were red as she repeatedly said that she didn't want to ruin the Bailey family's peaceful life. She just missed her son so much that she wanted to reunite with him. In short, before the lawsuit started, the public began to sympathize with the weak Suzuki Chisakura. A large number of reporters flocked to the Bailey family's mansion, wanting to interview them, but they all avoided meeting them. Even if they were unfortunately blocked by reporters, they kept their mouths shut and remained silent. The battle between the Bailey family and the Japanese woman for the child began with a bang. Everyone was curious and wanted to see who would win. There were 5 days until the first court hearing. Xia Dong finally received the information from the Yamaguchi group from Japan. There were a total of 10 sheets of paper, all of which contained information about Suzuki Chisakura. Xia Dong hurriedly skimmed through the information and her face darkened. She felt that this was a serious matter and immediately handed the information to Old Madam. After reading it, Old Madam angrily slammed the information on the table and said, "This Suzuki Chisakura is really something. If she's so capable, why didn't she wait until she was infertile to find Xiaobao? She obviously wants to use Xiaobao." It turned out that Suzuki Chisakura's personal information was full of misdeeds. After she abandoned Xiaobao, she became a kabuki to make a living. Later, she hooked up with Matsuda Taro, the leader of the Matsuda Mafia in Tokyo, and became his mistress. She was Matsuda Taro's mistress for 2 years. One day, Matsuda Taro's wife and son died in a car accident. According to the information, Suzuki Chisakura was the main suspect in the accident. However, due to insufficient evidence, she was acquitted. She was promoted from mistress to Matsuda Taro's second wife. 5 months ago, Matsuda Taro passed away due to illness. Suzuki Chisakura defeated Matsuda Taro's nephew, Matsuda Taihei, with the support of several elders in the mafia. She ascended to the position of mafia leader and became the first female mafia boss in Tokyo. According to the information, Suzuki Chisakura did not give birth to a child for Matsuda Taro in the past few years. She had gone to the gynecology hospital for a checkup. According to the doctor, she had lost her ability to conceive. It was not difficult to explain why she was determined to take back Xiaobao's custody. It was because Xiaobao was her only child in her life. Moreover, although she controlled the Matsuda Mafia, her power was still weak. If the power behind her genius son helped her, it would be much easier for her. Xia Dong frowned and said, "Grandma, if these things are exposed, Suzuki Chisakura won't have the upper hand in court. However, I think it's better to deal with it privately. I don't want Xiaobao to be hurt." The old lady nodded. "You're right. We have to think about this carefully. Xia, call Han back and let him take a look at this information." Bailey Han received a call from Xia Dong and immediately rushed back from the company. After carefully reading the information on Suzuki Chisakura, he said, "Although Suzuki Chisakura has controlled the Matsuda Mafia, Matsuda Taihei's power must still be in the mafia. We can use this as a breakthrough." Xia Dong's eyes lit up. "You plan to help Matsuda Taihei compete with her for the position of mafia leader?" Bailey Han smiled. "That's right. If there's a fire in her backyard, she won't have so much energy to fight with us. She has something on us, but we also have something on her. It's just a matter of whose trump card is bigger." The old lady nodded approvingly. I think it's more appropriate to leave this matter to Mika Kito. Yamaguchi-gumi has deep roots in Japan and can gain Matsuda Taihei's trust. Xia, help me contact Mika Kito. I'll ask her for help personally. Attention, Song Shu 566. Chapter 328. On the day of the trial, the media gathered. There were many reporters and cars outside the courthouse. As soon as the plaintiff, Suzuki Chien Sakura's luxurious Maserati appeared, all the cameras were focused on her. Not far away, the host of the live broadcast introduced Suzuki Chien Sakura to the audience in front of the TV. Ladies and gentlemen, the car driving into the courthouse is the plaintiff, Suzuki Chien Sakura. Suzuki Chien Sakura is the second wife of Matsuda Taro of the Matsuda Group. She came all the way to China to find her son who had been separated from her for 5 years. In front of the public, Suzuki Chien Sakura's image as a mafia boss was gilded. The Mafia Matsuda Group had also transformed into a famous industrial group in Tokyo. Just as the female host was talking about Suzuki Chien Sakura and the case, Bailey Yun's car slowly drove into the media's line of sight. He had changed his usual cool and unrestrained image in front of the media. It was rare for him to wear a formal suit and tie, and his blonde hair was dyed black. Obviously, he wanted to win the favor of the public and the judge with his image. Hello, Second Master. What are your thoughts on today's trial? Are you confident? Second Master, did you know beforehand that Xiao Bao was your son? Second Master, what happened between you and Miss Suzuki Chien Sakura? Is it possible for you to get back together and give your child a complete family? Second Master, in the face of the torrent of questions from the reporters, Bailey Yun's expression was cold and solemn. He replied in an official tone, "The trial is about to begin. Please wait and see." After that, he did not speak again. His thin lips were pursed as he walked to the courthouse under the protection of his bodyguards. Then, both sides' lawyers entered the courthouse and were also besieged by the reporters. However, the lawyers were all experienced and could not be influenced by anything. They solemnly said, "No comment," and stepped into the courthouse. There were 10 minutes before the start of the trial. The plaintiff and the defendant had already taken their respective seats. Suzuki Chien Sakura looked at Bailey Yun, who was sitting opposite her. The corners of her lips curled up and a smug look appeared in her eyes. She had a lot of evidence about Bailey Yun's absurd behavior in his early years, which was enough to push him into a disadvantageous position. Bailey Yun also stared at her with his deep eyes. His expression was calm and composed, as if he had a card up his sleeve. Suzuki Chisakura raised her eyebrows, treating his current behavior as a meaningless struggle before his death. There were still 5 minutes to the start of the trial. The judge slowly took his seat. Chien Sakura's phone suddenly rang. She glanced at the caller ID, pressed the answer button, and whispered in Japanese, "Ikeda, what's up?" "Madam, something bad has happened." Matsuda Taihei has convinced the 5 elders and plans to elect a new gang leader in 3 days. What? Suzuki Chisakura's expression changed. How could this be? Didn't we already take care of those old men? It said that Matsuda Taihei bribed the 5 elders. In short, we'll be electing a new leader in 3 days. Madam, you should hurry back to Japan. Got it. Suzuki Chisakura hung up the phone with a gloomy face. The court session was about to begin. The staff reminded everyone present to turn off their phones or put them on silent mode. Just as Suzuki Chisakura was about to turn off her phone, a text message popped up on her phone. It was from Bailey Yun. "Withdraw the lawsuit immediately, or you won't be able to keep your position as the gang leader." Damn it, this was Bailey Yun's doing. Suzuki Chisakura's hand trembled as she held the phone. She raised her head angrily and glared at Bailey Yun. Bailey Yun had a calm smile on his face. His slender eyebrows were slightly raised, and there was a hint of mockery in his eyes. His slender fingers slid across the phone and sent a text message from the draft box. Another text message popped up. Suzuki Chisakura opened the message. "We already know all of your secrets. If you don't withdraw the lawsuit, I don't mind letting the lawyer expose your scandals to the public." Suzuki Chisakura was so angry that she gritted her teeth, her beautiful face contorted. Everyone, please be quiet. The court session is about to begin. The clerk was already announcing the rules of the court. Suzuki Chisakura's fingers were tightly twisted together. Her eyes were downcast, and there was a look of struggle in her eyes. The judge began to announce the cause of the case and the parties involved. Suzuki Chisakura gritted her teeth and suddenly stood up. Your Honor, I request to withdraw the lawsuit. There was a sudden commotion in the silent courtroom. The judge knocked on the table. Quiet. Plaintiff, your request to withdraw the lawsuit will need to be reviewed. After the court session, applications to withdraw the lawsuit would be reviewed by the court. If there was no illegal act or forced withdrawal of the lawsuit, the court would usually allow it. After a short adjournment, the judge allowed Suzuki Chisakura to withdraw the lawsuit after a discussion. Suzuki Chisakura was immediately surrounded by reporters when she came out of the courtroom. Miss Suzuki, why did you decide to withdraw the lawsuit? Suzuki-sen, did you decide to withdraw the lawsuit because you were forced by someone? Are you going to settle with Bailey Yun privately? Suzuki Chisakura was wearing sunglasses, so no one could see her expression. Her lips were slightly curled, and she seemed to be very calm. She said in broken Chinese, "Thank you for your concern. I decided to withdraw the lawsuit because I don't want to hurt my son. I've decided to negotiate with Bailey Yun privately about the custody of my son." Someone asked sharply, Miss Suzuki, if you want to protect your child, why didn't you choose to settle it privately from the beginning? Is there a reason why you've made this choice now that you're in a disadvantageous position legally? I'm sorry. I've said what I should say. Please make way. The bodyguards protected Suzuki Chisakura as they squeezed out of the encirclement. On the other side, Bailey Yun was also surrounded by many reporters. He was expressionless and did not reveal any special emotions for everyone to guess. He kept his mouth shut and did not answer any questions. Under the protection of his bodyguards, he got into his car. Suzuki Chisakura and Bailey Yun's car drove out of the media's sight. Some reporters did not give up and followed behind, intending to secretly take photos. However, the two of them were not ordinary people. They had already noticed that someone was following them. The bodyguards drove the car left and right to get rid of the reporters. Suzuki Chisakura leaned back in the comfortable seat and dialed Bailey Yun's number. She said calmly, "I want to see you." Bailey Yun casually brushed the hair in front of his forehead. "Okay, I'll see you at Binchuan Road in half an hour." Their cars arrived at the agreed location one after another. There was a high-end tea house there, which Bailey Yun's friend had invested in and opened. The environment was elegant, and it was easy to hide. Under the guidance of the waiter, Chisakura Suzuki arrived at a luxurious private room on the second floor. Bailey Yun was lazily leaning on a bamboo chair. His slender fingers were holding a cup of tea as his fingertips gently caressed the delicate porcelain. His movements were elegant and leisurely. When she saw him like this, she felt anger rising in her heart. Knitting her brows, she sat opposite him with a belly full of anger. She coldly said, "What a clever method. It seems that I've underestimated your family." Bailey Yun looked at her with a cold smile. "If it wasn't for my clever method, I'm afraid that everyone would have been fooled by your motherly face. Suzuki Chisakura, aren't you disgusting? You actually want to use Xiaobao." Suzuki Chisakura flew into a rage out of humiliation. "What do you mean by that? I just want my son back. How is that using Xiaobao?" Bailey Yun sneered. "If you still have the ability to give birth, will you remember Xiaobao? If Xiaobao wasn't the young master of Yamaguchi-gumi and the young master of the Dark Knight clan, will you still insist on him back? You still haven't gained a firm foothold in the Matsuda group. If you have the help of Yamaguchi-gumi and the Dark Knight clan, you can sleep on Wuyu. Do you think that you can fool everyone with your little tricks? Aren't you looking down on us too much?" Suzuki Chisakura's wishful thinking was exposed, and a trace of panic flashed in her eyes. However, she quickly recovered her emotions and stroked the hair by her ear. "I admit that what you said is the truth, but that doesn't deny that I love Xiaobao. I'm his mother, and I have the right to take him back." Bailey Yun stared at her coldly and said word by word, "From the moment you abandoned him, you didn't deserve to be his mother. The reason why I gave you a chance and didn't expose your scandal in court was because I didn't want Xiaobao to know how hateful you are as a mother." Suzuki Chisakura couldn't control herself anymore and said angrily, "Bailey Yun, that's enough. You keep saying that I'm not good, but you're no better than me. You only care about your own pleasure and don't even know about your son's existence. What right do you have to criticize me?" Bailey Yun pursed his thin lips and said coldly, "I admit that I'm not a good father, but at least I truly love Xiaobao and don't have any selfish motives. I'm not here today to quarrel with you. Suzuki Chisakura, how about we make a deal?" Suzuki Chisakura stared at him cautiously. "What deal?" Bailey Yun curled his lips mockingly. "I'll help you secure your position as the leader, and you'll give up Xiaobao's custody. Without my permission, you're not allowed to visit Xiaobao." She gritted her teeth and said, "Don't even think about it." He crossed his arms and leaned back leisurely. "If you don't agree, you can go back to Japan now to deal with Matsuda Taihei's seizure of power. It won't be too late for us to talk when you're done." Suzuki Chisakura was choked by his words and her face turned red and white. Actually, on the way to the tea house, she had contacted her right-hand man, Ikeda, and learned that Ikeda had already communicated with the 5 elders of the gang. However, those old men were as stubborn as stones in a latrine pit. No matter how they were coerced or tempted, they refused to change their minds and firmly supported Matsuda Taihei. She didn't know what benefits Matsuda Taihei had given them. Bailey Yun put the teacup on the table and stood up comfortably. "Alright, that's all for today. I'll be waiting for you to come back whenever you're done with your business." Suzuki Chisakura was furious, but there was nothing she could do. She could only watch as he walked out of the room. Then, she was so angry that she swept all the tea sets on the table to the floor. The tea spilled all over the floor and the pieces flew everywhere. Song Shu 566. Chapter 329. Bailey Yun, who had just walked out of the door, naturally heard the noise inside. He patted the shoulder of the waiter standing next to him and winked at him. The waiter nodded, walked into the room, and bowed politely to Suzuki Sakura. "Miss, this tea set is an antique from the Ming Dynasty. It's worth 5 million. Would you like to pay by card or cash?" Suzuki Chisakura's vision turned dark and she almost fainted from anxiety. Bailey Yun smiled, put his hands in his trouser pockets, and hummed a song as he went downstairs. In the hall, he met the owner of the tea house, Xiao Shu. Xiao Shu glanced at the second floor, raised his eyebrows, and smiled. "No wonder you suddenly asked me to replace the tea set with a valuable antique. It's a pity that my porcelain was all smashed by someone's anger." Bailey Yun raised his eyebrows and smiled. "Come on, your antiques are worth 4 million at most. Won't you be happy if I let you make a net profit of 1 million? "Okay, buddy. Thank you." Xiao Shu patted him on the shoulder. "When your matter is solved, let's go for a drink together." Bailey Yun smiled. "Okay, it's a deal. Don't stand me up again. I just stood you up to accompany my wife on New Year's Eve. Do you have to remember it until now?" Xiao Shu said. He suddenly looked at the stairs and lowered his voice. "They're coming down. Do you want to hide? What are you afraid of? It's not like I forced her to throw those things." Bai Liyun lazily shrugged his shoulders and leaned back on the sofa. Xiao Shu shook his head. Suzuki Sakura followed the waiter and slowly walked down from the second floor. It could be seen that her face was very ugly. When she saw Bailey Yun sitting on the sofa and chatting with others, her eyes immediately filled with anger, but she couldn't do anything. The waiter led her to Xiao Shu and said politely, "Miss Suzuki, this is the boss of our tea house, Mr. Xiao. Mr. Xiao, Miss Suzuki accidentally broke your favorite Ming Dynasty tea set. She wants to discuss the compensation with you face to face." Xiao Shu extended his hand in invitation. "Miss Suzuki, please sit." Bailey Yun's eyes were filled with a mischievous smile. He coughed and said, "Xiao Shu, since you still have something to do, I won't bother you anymore. Let's meet again another day." Xiao Shu patted his shoulder, the smile in his eyes self-evident. "Alright, take care." Bailey Yun completely ignored Chisakura Suzuki. After bidding farewell to Xiao Shu, he put on his sunglasses and walked out of the tea house. Suzuki Chisakura held back her anger and negotiated with Xiao Shu, saying that her lawyer would ask someone to evaluate the value of the antique, and then she would compensate. Xiao Shu didn't seem to have any intention of making things difficult for her and nodded in agreement. However, there was a saying that a strong dragon couldn't suppress a local snake. It wasn't difficult for people like Xiao Shu to make the antique appraiser give an extra million when evaluating the tea set. Bailey Yun suppressed Suzuki Chisakura and caused her to lose money, so he was in a good mood. He predicted that she wouldn't last long and would surrender to his conditions. After all, he had experienced Mika Kito's methods. He smirked and turned on the music in the car. Suddenly his phone rang. He turned off the music and answered the car phone. "Hello, who is this?" The person on the other end of the phone hesitated for a moment. "Bailey Yun, it's me, Li Duobao." Bailey Yun's eyes narrowed. He coughed and his voice softened. "What's the matter?" Li Duobao grunted and said uncomfortably, "I saw the news. It's about you and Xiao Bao." He tightened his grip on the steering wheel and his expression became cold. "Well, I heard that Suzuki Chisakura withdrew the lawsuit today. Are you okay?" Bailey Yun's brows relaxed slightly and the corners of his lips curled up imperceptibly. "Li Duobao, are you worried about me?" She paused and suddenly shouted anxiously, I just don't want Xiao Bao to be snatched away by that woman. All right, I know my attitude is wrong because that woman is Xiao Bao's biological mother. Forget it, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm hanging up, don't hang up yet. Hello, Li Duobao, beep beep. Bailey Yun stared ahead and his facial muscles twitched uncontrollably. This despicable woman actually dared to hang up on him. He turned the steering wheel with both hands and drove in another direction. Li Duobao was very annoyed and scratched her head hard. What nonsense was she talking about? She had nothing to do with Bailey Yun, so why was she so worried? Those were his family matters. Li Duobao stared at the landline on the table and frowned in frustration. Should she call him to apologize? She shook her head. Forget it. That guy would definitely misunderstand. Yes, that's right. She shouldn't call him. She was flying to New York tomorrow. She'd better hurry up and pack her luggage. Yes, that's it. Li Duobao muttered to herself and turned around decisively. She didn't look at the phone anymore and went back to the bedroom to pack her luggage. As she was too engrossed in packing her luggage, she quickly forgot what she was worried about. Half an hour later, she was already in the kitchen, planning to cook something delicious for herself. The phone in her pocket rang. She wiped her hands and took it out. When she saw the name on the screen, she hesitated for a moment. She asked carefully, "Bailey Yun, what's the matter?" Bailey Yun's cold voice came from the other side. "Come downstairs." "I'm downstairs. Come down right now." Okay. She immediately took off her apron, put on her down jacket, locked the door and ran downstairs. In less than 2 minutes, Bailey Yun saw a white figure running towards him. Li Duobao bent over and supported her legs with both hands, panting heavily. "I'm so tired." I ran down. Bailey Yun stared at her in disdain. Then his gaze fell on her feet. She was wearing a pair of furry slippers with rabbit ears. "Isn't there an elevator? Also, why didn't you change your shoes and zip up your clothes?" She scratched her head embarrassedly. "I was afraid that you'd wait for too long." His eyes flickered. He suddenly walked forward and held her shoulders with both hands to help her stand up straight. Then he grabbed the hem of her down jacket. She widened her eyes in shock. "What are you doing?" "Idiot, I'm going to help you zip it up." Bailey Yun lowered his head and slowly pulled up the zipper of her jacket. Li Duobao blushed in embarrassment and took 2 steps back. "Why are you looking for me? Which floor are you staying on? Let's talk upstairs." Bailey Yun turned and walked towards the building. She was stunned for a moment and ran after him. "I'm on the 5th floor." The room wasn't big, but it was very clean and decorated cozily. There were 3 or 4 cartoon character pillows on the sofa in the living room. There was a thin blanket on the back of the chair. Seeing that he was staring at the blanket, she quickly put it away and hid it behind her back. She smiled awkwardly. I like to lie on the sofa and watch TV. Have a seat first. I'll be back soon. She ran back to the bedroom with the blanket and quickly rushed to the kitchen to make a pot of hot tea for him. The aroma of rice wafted from the rice cooker. Bailey Yun looked up at the kitchen. You're cooking? Yeah, I haven't cooked yet. Do you want to stay for dinner? All right, he answered quickly. She hesitated for a moment and said, Why are you looking for me? Bailey Yun leaned back and leaned against the sofa comfortably. He held his chin with one hand and looked at her with a burning gaze. Let me ask you, were you worried about me when you called me just now? Her cheeks were slightly hot. I wasn't worried about you. I was worried about Xiao Bao, he pressed on. You were asking about me. She lowered her head and scratched the sofa with her fingers. She said stubbornly, that was a slip of the tongue. I wanted to ask if you guys were okay. His lips moved. He wanted to say something, but she stood up and said angrily, I'm not going to talk nonsense with you anymore. I'm going to cook. Bailey Yun watched as she busied herself in the kitchen. His irritable mood gradually calmed down. He thought that it was time to sort out his feelings for Li Duobao. Was it a spur-of-the-moment interest in her? Was it because he found her fresh and interesting, or did he really like her? Li Duobao still remembered the embarrassing incident when she treated him to hot pot last time. This time, to take care of his taste, some dishes didn't have chili, while some dishes only had a little chili. Bailey Yun helped her bring the fragrant dishes to the table. The dishes that looked, smelled, and tasted good made his appetite wet. He ate with relish and praised, I didn't expect you to know how to cook when you look so silly. She puffed up her cheeks. Her big eyes were filled with dissatisfaction. Are you praising me? When I was young, my father passed away early. My mother was very busy with work. When I came home from school, I would cook and wait for my mother to come back so that we could eat together. Bailey Yun looked at her with a complicated expression. She suddenly burst out laughing. You don't know. When I first learned how to cook, I was only 7 years old. I was too short. Here I was this tall. She gestured with her hand. When I was cooking, I couldn't reach the pot, so I moved a small stool in front of the gas stove and stood on it to cook. In the end, one time, I was too close to the gas stove and the flames almost set my clothes on fire. Fortunately, I smelled the stench. Bailey Yun's heart felt stuffy and a little uncomfortable. He stared at her. You were almost injured. How can you still laugh? She touched her nose embarrassedly. It was very dangerous at that time. But now that I think about it, I feel that it's very funny. Bailey Yun suddenly had an impulse to hug this silly girl in his arms. She grew up in a single-parent family and had a perverted stepfather. However, she had developed a cheerful personality. She did not complain about misfortune and was positive and optimistic about life. She was a very silly but very cute girl. His gaze made Li Duobao a little uncomfortable. She touched her cheek and pouted. Why are you staring at my face? Is there something dirty on it? He suddenly grinned. Come here. I'll help you wipe it. Okay. She obediently moved her face closer to his. He leaned over and gently planted a kiss on her rosy cheeks. Her eyes suddenly widened. He said, Li Duobao, let's date. This time, I'm serious. Add, Song Shu 566. Chapter 330. Li Duobao's eyes were filled with panic. She suddenly screamed and pushed him away. She fled into the bedroom in a panic, even dropping one of her furry slippers. No matter how much Bai Liyun knocked on the door, she refused to come out and refused to talk to him. In the end, he had no choice but to put on his coat and leave. Before leaving, he knocked on her door again. Li Duobao, I'm serious. I think I like you. Think about what I said. Bai Liyun nodded and said, Li Duobao, I'm serious. I think I like you. There was still no response from the room. Bailey Yun was a little disappointed and annoyed. He walked out of the building dejectedly. An hour later, he was still sitting in the Ferrari, looking at the floor where she lived from afar. He pounded the steering wheel in annoyance. How could he have been so reckless? He must have scared her now. When he thought of her panicked eyes, as if he was a pervert, he couldn't help but feel annoyed. He called her number, but no one answered. Maybe he should give her time to calm down and think about it. Bailey Yun sighed and finally started the car. Suzuki Chisakura returned to Japan that day. However, she didn't give up on Xiaobao. She had people secretly follow Bailey Yun and monitor the situation at Bailey's house. When she rushed back to the Matsuda group, she realized that the situation was so serious that she couldn't solve it. Even the subordinates who used to support her had now transferred to Matsuda Taihei's camp. When she communicated with the 5 elders, she found out that Mika Kito had intervened in the matter. He was using the power of Yamaguchi-gumi to put pressure on the 5 elders. Suzuki Chisakura immediately contacted Mika Kito and wanted to negotiate with him, but Mika Kito refused to talk to her. He asked Suzaku to pass on a message to her. He said, "If you don't give up Xiaobao's custody, she can never be the leader of the Matsuda group." Suzuki Chisakura was so angry that she threw the phone on the floor. She crazily pushed everything on her desk to the floor. After a while, she slumped against the back of the chair and took out a very small photo from the drawer. In the photo was a cute baby. Her slender fingers caressed the photo as tears slowly slid down her face. After a long time, she put the photos back into the drawer. There were still 2 days left. She hoped that things would turn around. However, fate did not favor her. The subordinates who were monitoring Bailey Yun and the Bailey family reported that they did not find any evidence that could be used against them. Chien Sakura even thought of kidnapping the Bailey's family to threaten them, but they seemed to be prepared. They rarely went out in the past 2 days, and even if they did, there were at least 2 bodyguards following them. It was almost impossible to kidnap them. On the 3rd day, it was time for the Matsuda group to elect a new leader. Matsuda Corporation headquarters, inside a spacious and luxurious conference room. Wearing a kimono, Suzuki Chisakura sat at the head of the table with an expressionless face. Matsuda Taihei arrived late. He was wearing a black suit, and there was a gentle smile on his handsome face. It was obvious that he had a card up his sleeve. He was followed by the 5 elders, who looked like they were at his beck and call. "Andy, I'm late. Please don't mind." Matsuda Taihei greeted her politely, but in Suzuki Chisakura's eyes, it was a provocation. Her beautiful eyes suddenly narrowed, and then she smiled. "Taihei, you're a nosy person. It's understandable that you're late." The 2 of them had already begun to exchange words. The elder coughed and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, today's meeting is to discuss the re-election." The old man rambled on, saying that Suzuki Chisakura was a woman and did not have the ability to lead the Matsuda group. The nephew of the former leader, Matsuda Taihei, was young and promising, and was the best candidate for the position. The more Suzuki Chisakura listened, the angrier she became. She felt terrible to see someone who used to support her become a supporter of her opponent. Her thirst for power swelled in her heart, and she felt like she was about to explode. She looked at the phone on the table and finally made up her mind. She coughed and interrupted the elder's long speech. "I'll take a 2-minute break. I have something to do." She did not care about the ugly expressions on everyone's faces. She picked up her phone and walked out of the conference room calmly. In the office, Suzuki Chisakura dialed Bailey Yun's cell phone. "Bailey Yun, I agree to your conditions." Bailey Yun's magnetic voice came through. "I'll say it again. My conditions are, 1. You give up Xiaobao's custody. 2. You're not allowed to visit Xiaobao without my consent." She gritted her teeth and said resolutely, "I agree to all of them." "Very well. Tell me the fax number, and I'll fax you the agreement." Bailey Yun had expected her to agree, so he had already asked the lawyer to draft the agreement. Suzuki Chien Sakura gave him the fax number, and within a minute, the agreement was faxed over. Bailey Yun said, "I've already signed the agreement. You just need to sign it, stamp it with your personal seal, and fax it to me. That's all." Suzuki Chisakura hurriedly read the agreement. It was very clear that she was willing to give up custody without any coercion. She had to get Bailey Yun's consent before she could visit Xiaobao. The agreement also stated that the agreement was effective from the day it was faxed. The terms were very strict, and there were no loopholes. She picked up the pen and was about to sign it when she hesitated. Suddenly, her subordinate knocked on the door. Madam, Mr. Matsuda Taihei asked me to rush you. They could not wait for her to step down. She made up her mind and no longer hesitated. She signed her name, stamped her seal, and faxed the agreement to Bailey Yun. When she came out of the office, her aura changed. She was cold and arrogant. She was waiting to see the exciting scene when Matsuda Taihei fell from the Peak of Hope. It was also at that moment that Suzuki Chisakura witnessed Baidingshin's ability to control the world with a flip of his hand. Just a minute before she walked into the meeting room, the 5 elders received a text message at the same time. It was only a few words. Change the direction of the wind. So when Suzuki Chisakura walked into the meeting room again, the atmosphere had changed. She glanced at everyone and said calmly, "The meeting continues. Great Elder, where were you?" The Great Elder smiled gently. "We were talking about a new election, which was requested by Mr. Matsuda Taihei. However, after discussing it with the other 4 elders and the brothers in the gang, we feel that there is no need for a new election." Matsuda Taihei still didn't know that he was a sacrifice in the battle between Suzuki Chizakura and the Bailey family. He was shocked and locked his eyes on the Great Elder. "Great Elder, did you say something wrong?" The Great Elder looked confused. "Did I say something wrong? No, I have always said that there is no need for a new election. Don't you think so, other 4 elders?" The other 4 elders agreed. "That's right. That's what you said." "Nephew Taihei, did you hear wrongly?" Matsuda Taihei's expression changed. "What's wrong with all of you? Didn't you say that you would support me?" The second elder shook his head. "Nephew Taihei, why do you say that? Madam is doing well as the gang leader. Why would we support you?" A sneer appeared in Suzuki Chisakura's eyes as she looked at them with an expressionless face. Matsuda Taihei was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He pointed at the noses of the 5 elders and nodded angrily. "Good, very good. The 5 of you actually joined forces to deceive me. Taihei, have you lost your mind? When did we ever deceive you?" The 3rd elder stroked his beard with an innocent face. "Suzuki Chisakura, this is all part of your scheme, isn't it?" Matsuda Taihei pounced on Suzuki Chisakura in anger. The bodyguard behind her immediately rushed forward and stopped him. Suzuki Chisakura raised her hand and stopped the bodyguard from escorting Matsuda Taihei out. "Taihei, why are you so agitated? I didn't do anything. Every injustice has its perpetrator. This is the Yamaguchi-gumi's doing. If you have the ability, go and make trouble with Mika Kito." Matsuda Taihei's eyes narrowed as hatred flashed in his eyes. "Mika Kito? Yes. We've all been tricked by him." Suzuki Chisakura sighed. "You know how powerful the Yamaguchi-gumi is. They have always been eyeing the Matsuda group's territory. He intends to use this opportunity to disintegrate the Matsuda group. Don't fall into his trap." Then the 5 of them, Matsuda Taihei wasn't a fool. He wouldn't be easily fooled by Suzuki Chisakura's words. He pointed at the 5 elders. "What's going on with them?" Suzuki Chisakura stared at the 1st elder with a smile. "First elder, please explain to Taihei." The 1st elder's forehead was covered in sweat. He knew that she was using this opportunity to put him in his place. An idea flashed in his mind and he followed Suzuki Chisakura's words. "Taihei, Madam is right. Mika Kito has long wanted to disintegrate the Matsuda group. This time, he deliberately bribed the few of us to support you in seizing the gang leader's position, so as to provoke a dispute between you and Madam. Fortunately, the 5 of us saw through his scheme. At the critical moment, we didn't follow the path he set." The 1st elder walked to Matsuda Taihei's side and waved his hand, signaling the bodyguards to let him go. He patted Matsuda Taihei's shoulder and said apologetically, "I'm sorry that we lied to you. However, we only pretended to fool Mika Kito. Please forgive us." The 2nd elder said, "Nephew Taihei, no matter what misunderstanding you have with us, it's a gang matter. Our common enemy is Mika Kito." Suzuki Chisakura looked at Matsuda Taihei with a sincere gaze. "Taihei, you're a sensible person. Let's pretend that nothing happened today. Let's think of a way to deal with Mika Kito together. Their words had dispelled all of Matsuda Taihei's doubts. They had also transferred all of his resentment to Mika Kito. As a result, Mika Kito was buried in a disaster. Awesome novel, Songshu 566. Chapter 331. Mika Kito had played a crucial role in the successful resolution of Xiaobao's matter. In order to thank him, old Madame Han brought the whole family to treat him to a meal at Century Splendid. As usual, Beitang Shen didn't have any expression on his face. Only when he was facing a few children would he reveal his warmth. Fortunately, the old madam also understood his personality, so she deliberately brought up some topics that everyone could join in the conversation. Thus, the atmosphere at the dinner was still harmonious. After the meal, everyone drank tea and chatted for a while before leaving. Bailey Yun had been absent-minded the whole time. From time to time, he would take out his phone and glance at it. When he came out of the hotel, Bailey Han patted him on the shoulder and said in a concerned tone, "What's the matter? I see that you've been absent-minded tonight." Bailey Yun shook his head. "It's nothing. If you have something to say, say it. Don't keep it to yourself." Bailey Yun's eyes moved. He was a little surprised. Bailey Han would never say such words in the past. Although they were brothers, they rarely interacted with each other. Looking at Bailey Han's serious expression, he didn't seem to be joking. He raised his eyebrows. "Okay, I got it." Bailey Han nodded. Xia Dong came out of the hotel with the children. Xiao Bao held Xiao Guai's hand and didn't look at Bailey Yun. Bailey Yun coughed and said, "Xiao Bao, are you taking my car or your father's car?" Xiao Bao didn't know how to face Bailey Yun. He didn't want to call him daddy, but he couldn't call him second uncle. When he had to talk to him, Xiao Bao would directly address him as you. Although Bailey Yun didn't feel good about it, he couldn't do anything about it. He understood that the relationship between father and son needed time to develop. Xiao Bao still refused to look at him and said calmly, "I'll go with Xiao Guai and Xiao Yi." That meant that she was going to take Bailey Han's car. Bailey Han gave Bailey Yun a look, indicating for him not to be anxious and to take it slow. Bailey Yun smiled bitterly as he watched the family of 6 get into the car. After returning home, the old madam summoned Bailey Yun to her study and had a long talk with him. The old madam said kindly, "Ah Yun, you are no longer alone. Do you have any plans for your life?" Bailey Yun had been thinking about this question for a long time. He frowned and said, "Grandma, my business is in America now. In 2 days, I will return to America. As for Xiao Bao, let him stay in China. I'll have to trouble big brother and sister-in-law to take care of him for a period of time. My company will enter the China market in a year at the latest. When that time comes, I will be stationed in China for a long time, and it will be convenient for me to take care of Xiao Bao." The old madam thought for a moment and said, "That's a good idea. However, you should discuss it with Xiao Bao first. There are many problems between you and your father, and you need to communicate well." Bailey Yun nodded. "I understand, Grandma." The old madam looked at the respectful grandson in front of her. He was no longer the hedonistic son of a rich family. She felt comforted and her tone became gentler. "Ah Yun, have you considered your personal problems?" Suddenly seeing the eagerness in her eyes, Bailey Yun was a little stunned. He had never thought that the old madam, who had always been strict and cold to him, would look at him with such eyes. He pursed his lips and felt a little uncomfortable. "I actually have a girl that I like," the old madam hurriedly said. "What's her character like?" Bailey Yun coughed and his ears turned slightly red. "She's very innocent and not scheming. She's also a little silly." It was the old madam's first time seeing his embarrassed expression. She couldn't help but laugh. "It's good that she has a good character. What does she do?" "Stewardess." Bailey Yun paused and deliberately softened his tone. "Her family background is average. She comes from a single-parent family." The old madam's smile did not fade. She joked, "What? Are you worried that I'll say something about your family background not matching, so I'll oppose you too? If it was a year ago, I might have really done that. But now, I've seen through it. Su Xingchen and Su Yunqian, which one of them isn't the daughter of a rich family? They're full of evil tricks. If I really married them, there would be no peace in the family. As long as that girl has a good character, a good heart and won't mistreat Xiao Bao, I have no objections. A smile appeared in Bailey Yun's eyes and his lips curved. She likes Xiao Bao a lot. Xiao Bao likes her too. His marriage was a big worry for the old madam. At this moment, hearing him say this, she immediately felt relieved. She smiled and said, "That's good, that's good. Set a time with that girl. I'll meet her." Bailey Yun coughed and looked embarrassed. "Grandma, it's just that I like her. I don't know if she likes me." The old madam was angry and amused. She pointed at his nose and said, "Look at you. Aren't you very popular with girls? Since she's so good, hurry up and chase her here." Bailey Yun felt wronged. "I want to, but she's not answering my calls or replying to my messages." The old madam was anxious. She stomped the floor with her walking stick. "Go to her house and find her." Bailey Yun laughed. His long and narrow foxy eyes slightly raised. "Grandma, why are you more anxious than me?" The old madam slapped him on the head in annoyance. "You're already so old but you can't even get a girl. How can I not be anxious?" Bailey Yun's eyebrows were full of smiles. "Grandma, you haven't even seen her and you're already sure that she's suitable for me?" The old madam looked into his eyes seriously. "Ah Yun, you've played for so many years and have dated so many girls. You know who's suitable for you. Grandma just believes in your taste." The ice in Bailey Yun's heart gradually melted. He slowly curled his lips. "Grandma, thank you." The old madam patted his shoulder and said gently, "Ah Yun, we neglected you in the past. I hope that we can make it up to you in the future. I'm old and I've seen many things. Right now, I only know one reason, and that is, family is the most important. No matter where you go, you have to remember that at home, there's still someone thinking about you." Bailey Yun was slightly startled and then chuckled. "Grandma, I'll remember." The old madam smiled. "Go, get that girl as soon as possible." "All right." Bailey Yun came out of the study and stood in the empty corridor for a long time. On the way back to his room, he passed by Xiao Bao's room. He hesitated for a moment, raised his hand, and knocked on the door. "Xiao Bao, it's me. Can I come in?" Xiao Bao's voice was muffled. "Come in. What are you doing?" Bailey Yun walked into the room and saw Xiao Bao sitting in front of the desk. His back was straight, and he was holding a pen in his right hand, writing something quickly. Xiao Bao did not even turn his head. "I'm doing my winter homework. School will start in a few days." Bailey Yun stood behind him. "After you're done, I'll check for you, okay?" He tried his best to play the role of a father. "No need." Xiao Bao rejected him immediately. A certain someone was a little hurt. His fingers scratched the back of the chair, and he cried silently in his heart. Xiao Bao seemed to realize that he had rejected him too quickly. He puffed up his cheeks and added, "My answers are 100% correct, so there's no need to waste time checking." A certain someone was energized, as if he had been injected with chicken blood. "Then do you want to listen to a bedtime story?" Xiao Bao pursed his lips. "No need. I'm not in the mood today." "Oh." A certain someone was crestfallen again, and he sighed from time to time, like a resentful wife who had been abandoned. Xiao Bao's mouth twitched, and the handwriting on the exercise book became messy. He suddenly turned around and looked at the certain someone behind him, who was walking around resentfully. "Are you bored?" Bailey Yun's resentful eyes immediately drifted over, and he looked like a resentful wife. "You don't seem to need me at all. I'm really an incompetent father." As he spoke, he squatted down and hugged his knees with both hands. He looked up and stared at Xiao Bao with pitiful eyes. Xiao Bao was about to explode. He slammed his pen on the table and shouted at the certain someone who was pretending to be pitiful, "Hey, you're an adult. Don't you think your current behavior is very shameful?" Bailey Yun shook his head fiercely. His gaze was pitiful, and his tone was desolate. "I think it's more shameful to be ignored by my own son." Ah, Xiao Bao was about to go crazy. Why did he have such a shameless father? If you have nothing else to do, get out. Bailey Yun's tone was bleak. "Son, don't worry about me. Please continue to ignore my existence. When you're done with your homework, just give me 10 minutes. We'll have a good talk. I can't do my homework with you here, okay? Xiao Bao threw caution to the wind. He moved a small stool over and sat in front of him. Tell me, what do you want to talk to me about? Bailey Yun patted his head. His foxy eyes narrowed into slits. Call me Daddy and I'll tell you. Xiao Bao silently turned his head and stood up. He didn't even want the small stool. He sat back down on the chair in front of the desk, picked up his pen, and continued to do his homework. Bailey Yun was really injured. He hid in a corner and licked his fur to heal his injuries. After a while, he pretended to be lighthearted and said, Son, actually, I really do have something to talk to you about. Xiao Bao's body didn't move. He continued, In a few days, I'll continue to work in America. In a year at the latest, after the company enters the China market, I'll be stationed in China. If you want, you can come with me to America. If you want to stay in China, your parents will take care of you. I'll also come back to visit you often. The little guy still didn't make a sound. Bailey Yun lowered his eyes and said in a deep voice, Xiao Bao, I was born into an incomplete family. When I was very young, I told myself that if I had a child in the future, I must treat him well and love him. Although I still don't know how to be a good father, I'll work hard. Are you willing to believe me? He raised his head and looked at Xiao Bao. His small figure looked a little lonely under the light. He didn't respond, nor did he make any movements. Bailey Yun smiled bitterly and stood up. I won't disturb you from doing your homework. Finish your homework and rest early. As the door closed with a bang, the tears in Xiao Bao's eyes fell. Come and see. Hongsha 866. Chapter 332. 2 days later, the kindergarten started school. Xiao Guai was very excited because she could go back to school and play with her friends. Bailey Yun took Xiao Bao, while Xia Dong took Xiao Yi and Xiao Guai to school. Bailey Yun dragged Xiao Bao into his car and tied him to the front passenger seat, forcing him to listen to his nagging. Son, don't fight with your classmates in school. Of course, if someone beats you up, you can beat them back. Xiao Bao rolled his eyes. Are you telling me not to fight with others, or am I allowed to fight with others? Bailey Yun ruffled his hair. Don't take the initiative to hit others. If they hit you, don't hesitate to hit them back. Do you understand? Oh, Xiao Bao said. He looked up and asked curiously, what if I beat them to death? Bailey Yun's mouth twitched. Son, are you deliberately making things difficult for me? Xiao Bao snorted. It's good that you know. I'm not a 3-year-old kid who knows how to deal with conflicts between classmates. I don't need you to teach me. Okay, I know you're good. Bailey Yun's eyes suddenly lit up and he said, one more thing. No puppy love. Xiao Bao looked at him with disdain. Do you think I'm like you? Leave mercy everywhere. He enunciated the last 4 words with great emphasis. Bailey Yun coughed awkwardly. So, I'm a bad example. Don't learn from me. In school, you have to protect your sister and don't let her get bullied. Do you understand? Xiao Bao said impatiently, I know, naggy old man. Hey, your daddy, I'm still in my prime. How am I old? You dare to complain that I'm naggy now? When I'm 70 or 80 years old and really become an old man, are you going to kick me out of the house? Bailey Yun felt that it was necessary to teach him a lesson about respecting his elders. Xiao Bao glared at him with his big beautiful eyes and said fiercely, don't worry. Even if you're old and your teeth fall out, I'll take care of you. I'm your son after all. Although his attitude wasn't good, his words still made Bai Liyun feel good. Thus, he very shamelessly forgot his original purpose. He smiled and patted Xiao Bao's head, praising, Son, you said it very well. After reporting their arrival, Bailey Yun squatted in front of Zhao's face. Xiao Bao couldn't stand it and frowned. He grabbed Xiao Guai's little hand and said, the teacher has a meeting. Meeting? We'll be going. With that, the 2 little guys ran away. Bailey Yun's head drooped and he looked like he had been dealt a blow. Xia Dong couldn't help but laugh. Yun, you're starting to look like a father now. Bailey Yun was instantly revived. He raised his eyebrows and said, I can now understand how difficult it is for you. Xiaodong laughed. I'm serious. When it's cold, I want to remind him to put on more clothes. When he's hungry, I want to get him something to eat. When I don't see him for a while, I'm worried that something might have happened to him. He laughed at himself. I only know now that it's not easy being a parent. Xiaodong stopped laughing and walked to his side. She said seriously, Yun, don't worry and go to America. Your brother and I will take good care of Xiaobao. Bailey Yun's lips curved. Xia, thank you. Thank you for taking good care of Xiaobao all these years. Xiaodong smiled. You're treating me like an outsider. Xiaobao is also my son. He looked at her in a daze. He didn't know when it started, but when he saw her being intimate with Bailey Han, he didn't feel any heartache. He smiled and chuckled. Xia, seeing that you're happy, I can finally let go. Xiaodong pursed her lips and smiled. Fox, you'll find your happiness too. In the complicated emotional entanglements, the one who left didn't necessarily have to be alone for the rest of his life. There was still the most suitable person waiting for him. For example, Li Duobao. This woman that Bailey Yun missed so much was still unheard of. Before going abroad, he decided to go to her house again and have a good talk with her. Even if she rejected him, he would accept it. When he arrived at her door, he knocked for a long time, but no one answered. The neighbor opposite Li Duobao's house suddenly opened the door and poked her head out. She stared at Bailey Yun in confusion. You're looking for Duobao? She flew abroad yesterday. Bailey Yun asked politely, do you know which country she flew to? The sister-in-law frowned and thought for a while. It's either England or America. Duobao mainly flies these two routes. When will she be back? Tomorrow. Bailey Yun thanked her. The sister-in-law glanced at him and was about to close the door when she suddenly thought of something. She quickly poked her head out and looked at him carefully. Then she shook her head and said seriously, Sir, Duobao is a good girl. If you're just playing around, don't look for her again. Bailey Yun's expression changed. He knew that the sister-in-law had recognized him. He pursed his lips and said in a deep voice, Sister-in-law, I'm sincere about Duobao. After saying that, he left the stunned sister-in-law behind and turned to leave. In the end, Bailey Yun did not see Li Duobao. His plane was about to take off. His family sent him off at the airport. After saying goodbye reluctantly, Bailey Yun squatted in front of Xiaobao and hugged her tightly. He pressed Xiaobao's head against his chest and said in a low voice, Xiaobao, I'm leaving. I'll come back to see you every month. I'll work hard and try to develop my career in the country as soon as possible. Listen to your parents. Don't make me worry. Xiaobao lay on his chest and listened to his heartbeat. Finally, she slowly reached out her hand and placed it on his back. She softly grunted. Bailey Yun was surprised and hugged her tightly. Finally, she kissed him on the forehead and said, Son, wait for me to come back. Bailey Yun let go of Xiaobao and dragged his suitcase. He turned around and did not look at her again. He was afraid that if he looked at her again, he would not have the courage to walk out of there. Seeing that his back was about to disappear at the security checkpoint, Xiaobao suddenly shouted, Daddy, I'll wait for you to come back. Bailey Yun's body suddenly froze. He turned around in disbelief and saw Xiaobao's teary eyes. He threw down his things and ran toward Xiaobao. He rushed to him at an extremely fast speed and picked him up from the ground. He hugged him tightly in his arms and his heart was beating wildly. Son, what did you just say? Xiaobao wrapped her arms around his neck and smiled as tears streamed down her face. Daddy, I'll wait for you to come back. Good son, Daddy loves you. Bailey Yun kissed him hard on the cheek as tears rolled down his cheeks. Shame, you're already an adult and you're still crying. Don't let your great-grandmother and the others see this. Xiaobao smiled through her tears. She took out a handkerchief from her pocket and wiped his tears. Bailey Yun hugged him and smiled foolishly. She pressed her forehead against his little one. Son, I'm so happy. Xiaobao bared her teeth and made a face. Old Madam and the others had red eyes and used handkerchiefs to wipe the corners of their eyes. After a short reunion, Bai Liyun still boarded the plane to the United States. However, this time, he no longer had any regrets in his heart. He was filled with a sense of responsibility. He was a father. He had the responsibility to take care of his son. He had to create better conditions for his son. With such surging emotions, he once again stepped onto America's soil. In the blink of an eye, it was March. The scenery was bright and beautiful, and spring was in full bloom. Imperial Kindergarten paid more attention to quality education. Every year at the end of March, it would organize a spring outing for the older children to cultivate their ability to live independently and encourage them to get close to and love nature. There were a total of 20 children in this year's kindergarten class. This year's spring outing was stricter than previous years. The school's teachers would take the children to a relatively remote mountain village and let them live together for 2 days and 1 night. Of course, the school would ensure the children's safety. After all, these children were the treasures of rich families. If any of them were to have an accident, the school would be in serious trouble. The night before the spring outing, Xia Dong prepared a suitcase and a backpack for each of the 3 children at home. The suitcase contained the children's clothes, and the backpack was filled with food and water. There were also some commonly used medicines, such as cold medicine, burn medicine, and so on. Xia Dong was afraid that she would forget something, so she dragged Bailey Han out of the study and read out the things she had prepared to him. "Honey, what's missing?" Bailey Han touched his chin. "If you have to say what's missing, it's the 2 of us." Xia Dong said angrily, "I'm talking to you about something serious. Don't joke around." He stroked her hair and said softly, "Honey, the purpose of the kindergarten spring outing is to cultivate the children's ability to live independently. If you've prepared everything for them, what else do you need them to do?" Xia Dong bit her lip. "I know, but I'm just worried." Bailey Han took her into his arms and stroked her back. He said softly, "When I was 4 or 5 years old, I was already learning taekwondo and judo from my teacher. Xiao Bao and Xiao Yi are boys. In the future, they will inherit the Bailey family. They can't be weak. We have to cultivate their ability to be independent from a young age." Xia Dong lay in his arms for a long time. Finally, she nodded. "Okay, I'll listen to you." He smiled and said, "There's one more thing, honey. I've already contacted the coach. Starting in April, the coach will teach the 3 children martial arts. Xiao Guai is a girl. Although she doesn't have to be as strict as her brothers, she still has to learn basic self-defense skills. The children of the Bailey family had to learn martial arts from a young age. It was a family tradition. Xia Dong knew about it a long time ago. Moreover, Xiao Bao had learned martial arts from Mika Kito when she was in Japan. Therefore, she didn't have any objections and nodded in agreement. "Okay, don't worry about the 3 little guys. The school will take good care of them." Bailey Han bent down and carried her to the bedroom. "It's getting late. We should rest." Beauty novel, Shinwoo 799. Chapter 333. In the end, the 3 school bags that Xia Dong had prepared for the children were left at home. The little guys dragged their small suitcases to the school gate to wait for the school bus. Many parents reluctantly accompanied and escorted them. Xia Dong was also one of them. Xia Dong did not know that while she was worried about the children, Bailey Han had already made arrangements. The school attached great importance to the safety of this activity. Even the location of the spring outing was only known to a few people, including the principal. This was to prevent the location from being leaked and attracting the attention of criminals. After all, these children were from wealthy families. If 1 or 2 of them were kidnapped, the school would be finished. The principal planned to hire bodyguards with excellent martial arts from a professional bodyguard company to protect the children's safety. Bailey Han got wind of this and personally went to the school to talk to the principal, expressing his willingness to sponsor the accompanying bodyguards. He had heard of financial and material sponsorship, but had never heard of manpower sponsorship. Although the principal was surprised, he still accepted Bailey Han's sponsorship because he knew that Bailey's bodyguards were very powerful. Therefore, Bailey Han transferred 10 brothers from the Dragon Gang to disguise as security guards to accompany the school bus and protect the children on the outing. The school bus slowly came and stopped at the school gate. This was a luxurious minibus. Including the driver, There were exactly 20 seats. The teacher had arranged the numbers in advance and let the children get on the bus according to the numbers. The parents helped them put their luggage into the car's suitcase. Xiao Yi and her siblings sat in the middle. Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao were in a row. Xiao Guai and another girl sat in front of her brothers. Xia Dong carefully adjusted their seat belts and then told them one by one, "You Gigai kids, don't quarrel. Take care of each other, okay?" Xiao Guai kissed her cheek. "Okay, Mommy." Xiao Yi was the eldest. She patted her chest. "Mommy, don't worry. I will take good care of my brother and sister." Xiao Bao said, "Mom, don't worry. We're just going out to play. Nothing will happen." The school bus was about to start, so Xia Dong and the other parents were forced to get off. She noticed that there was a black Mercedes-Benz in front and behind the school bus. When the Mercedes-Benz in the back passed in front of her, a head suddenly popped out of the window and chuckled at her. "Young madam," Xia Dong was stunned. It was not until the three cars were far away that she realized that the man in the security uniform was Ah Bao. It must be Ah Bao. No wonder Bailey Han was so calm. He had already arranged everything. She suddenly felt like she had been played by her husband. Tears welled up in his eyes. Bailey Han was working in his office when his phone rang. It was a terrifying ringtone. "My wife is calling, my wife is calling." He smiled and put the phone to his ear. "Wifey," then came the sound of gnashing teeth. "Bailey Han, you're in big trouble." He laughed. "You found out." She said angrily, "Why did you hide it from me?" He laughed even more happily. "I like to see you busy like a headless fly." "Oh, I'm going crazy." "You're still laughing. Do you have fun teasing me?" A certain someone was already in a state of rage. He was laughing so hard that he was almost out of breath. "Wifey hem, calm down. When we get home tonight, I'll let you do whatever you want with me. Just you wait. I won't let you off." Xia Dong rubbed his chin and seriously considered whether he should use chili water or tiger stool. Bailey Han, honey, you're too bloody and violent. After driving for more than an hour, the school bus from Imperial Kindergarten stopped at a small village about 50 kilometers away from City A. Many of the villagers in this village were working in the city, and there were only the elderly, women, and children left in the family. The culture of the villagers was also relatively simple. The school had already communicated with the village chief and rented 10 houses from 10 families for the children and teachers to stay in. As for the bodyguards, they would also sleep on the floor in the children's houses to make it easier for them to protect them. There were a total of 20 children, 9 girls and 11 boys. Because Bailey Han had specially informed the school, the teacher arranged for Xiao Yi and her siblings to stay in the same homestay. There were 8 girls and 9 boys left. 2 girls to a room and 3 boys to a room. There was a bodyguard in each room to ensure their safety. Ah Bao was responsible for Xiao Yi and her siblings' safety. The children in the kindergarten were not surprised to see the bodyguards because they all had many bodyguards at home. When they went to and from school, they were also protected by bodyguards. However, Xiao Guai and her siblings were different because their bodyguards were old acquaintances. Xiao Guai quietly tugged at Xiao Yi's sleeve and whispered, "Brother Yi, that bodyguard looks like Uncle Bao." Xiao Yi whispered in her ear, "It doesn't look like him. He is Uncle Bao." "But why is Uncle Bao here?" The little cutie blinked her eyes in confusion. The smart Xiao Yi thought for a moment, then puffed up her cheeks and said, "Because these bodyguards were sent by Daddy." "Daddy is so awesome." Xiao Guai's eyes were filled with admiration. "Shoo, don't be so loud. Don't tell anyone. This is a secret, okay?" Xiao Bao suddenly came over and bared his teeth at the two of them. Okay, children. Now that you have checked your rooms, please hand over all your snacks, toys, and phones." There were 2 kindergarten teachers who came with them this time. One was called Ding Lin, and the other was called Yu Jinjin. They were both beautiful girls in their early 20s. At this moment, the one who clapped her hands and announced the rules was Ding Lin. "Why? I don't want to hand over my toys. We can't hand over our phones either. I want to talk to Daddy and Mommy." Many children began to protest, but Xiao Yi and the other 2 did not feel any pressure. Xiao Yi raised her chin proudly and said, "Mommy is so wise not to prepare snacks and toys." Xiao Bao grinned. He would not tell Xiao Yi and Xiao Guai that he had secretly seen his mother prepare 3 big bags of things, but his father had forcibly stopped her. Although the children strongly protested, Ding Lin and Yu Zhenzhen still took away their snacks and toys. 2 delicate little girls cried loudly, saying that they wanted to go home and not participate in the activity. The scene was chaotic for a moment. Fortunately, the teachers were very patient. They comforted and persuaded them to quiet down. Then Ding Lin said, "Before we confiscate your phones, you can call Daddy and Mommy to tell them that you are safe. You can't talk for more than 5 minutes." The children hurriedly made the phone calls. After Xiao Yi dialed the number, he handed the small phone to Xiao Guai like a big brother. Xiao Guai said in a childish voice, "Mommy, we are fine now. I am very obedient and I didn't cry. But the teacher said that you can only talk for 5 minutes. I will give the phone to my brothers." Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao also talked to Xia Dong on the phone. They manly comforted her not to worry and said that things were going smoothly. Ding Lin and Yu Zhenzhen finally heaved a sigh of relief when they finally took away the children's phones. Then it was lunchtime. Everyone was given a boiled egg, a boiled potato, and a steaming hot meat bun. The children carried their lunch and returned to their little nest. Although the room was very simple, it was very clean. There was a very large wooden bed that was completely big enough for the 3 of them to lie down. The 3 children sat on small stools. Small bowls of food were placed on the small wooden table. Xiao Yi took out a stack of wet wipes from the suitcase and gave one to each child. After the 3 children wiped their hands clean, Xiao Bao picked up an egg. "Gigai, eat the meat bun first. I will peel the egg for you." Oh, Xiao Guai hugged the steaming hot meat bun and carefully took a bite. Her delicate brows furrowed. "It's so hot, silly, blow it first." Xiao Yi took the meat bun from her hands and patiently helped her blow it. "Okay, you can eat now." "Hee, thank you, big brother." Although the conditions were very difficult, the children took care of each other and were very sweet. The children took an hour of lunch break. Then, the teacher took a loudspeaker and went door to door to wake them up. Some of the children were grumpy when they woke up. After they got up, they hugged their quilts and cried loudly. The teacher's hair almost turned white from worry. She didn't know if the spring outing could be completed successfully. The bodyguards were also in a particularly heavy mood. Although the boss had said that as long as the children weren't harmed by bad people and didn't have any accidents, it was very difficult to pretend to be deaf and mute when their ears were full of the children's cries. Therefore, while Ah Bao expressed deep sympathy for his subordinates, he was also very glad that his young master and young miss were very well behaved and never cried. "All right, children, stand properly. Now, let's start counting." After making sure that all the children were present, the teacher, Yu Zhenzhen, clapped her hands and said, "The arrangement for this afternoon is like this. We will first enjoy the scenery in this area. After an hour, everyone will go to the orchards and fields to help the farmers pick fruits and vegetables. At 4:30, we will gather on the grass by the river and prepare to make dinner. Is everyone understood?" "Understood," the children said in unison. Xiao Bao raised her little hand. "Teacher, I have a question." "Classmate Xiao Bao, please ask." "Teacher, is dinner prepared in the form of a picnic?" "Yes, when it's time to make dinner, I will explain some rules in detail. Now, let's enjoy the scenery first. Do you have any questions?" "No," a soft child's voice said. "Okay, now, children, please follow the team and don't get separated." Although this mountain village was remote, the natural scenery was very good. On the hillside, peach blossoms were blooming and the clouds were rising. A clear river flowed by the side of the field. Large golden rapeseed flowers bloomed enthusiastically. An old hen was leading a group of chicks in search of food in the field, clucking happily. Attention, Hongcha 866. Chapter 334. For the children born in the city, it was their first time seeing a real village. They widened their eyes in curiosity and ran around excitedly on the ridge of the fields. Some of the bolder children ran to the outside of the courtyard wall and peeped at the puppies at the gate of the courtyard. Woof woof woof. The puppy suddenly jumped up and bared its teeth at them warily. The children screamed and ran back, but the puppy did not chase after them. It turned out that there was a chain around its neck and the other end was tied to a pillar. The children laughed heartily and gathered their courage to go to the gate of the courtyard to play with the puppy. An old woman came out of the room when she heard the dog barking. Her right foot was not very nimble, so she walked with a limp. There was a large scar on the left side of her face. Although it was covered by her hair, it could still be seen clearly. Ah, a monster! A little girl screamed in fear when she saw the old woman's face. It's so scary. Is that an old witch? Another little girl grabbed her companion's hand tightly and whispered, "Let's get out of here quickly. The old witch will eat people." Xiao Bao glared at the two timid students. "Don't talk nonsense. It's very rude." The old woman acted as if she did not hear them and limped towards them. The other children screamed and retreated. Xiao Bao stood in place and said politely, "Grandma, I'm sorry to disturb you. We want to play with the puppy. Is that okay?" The old woman's eyes were cloudy. Her gaze fell on Xiao Bao and her voice was a little hoarse. "Don't play here. The puppy is very fierce and will bite people. Go out, go out." She stretched out her arms and drove the children out as if she was driving away small animals. Then she picked up a hoe from the gate and walked towards the fields in the distance. What a strange person. Yes, yes. Xiao Bao ignored the students' discussion and walked forward with his hands behind his back. He went to find Xiao Guai, who was picking wildflowers in the fields, and Xiao Yi, who was catching butterflies on the hillside to take home as a specimen. Once the little guys integrated into the environment, they were like wild horses. The teachers did not deliberately restrict their nature. As long as they did not do anything dangerous, they were allowed to play around. An hour passed quickly. The teacher gathered the children and divided them into two groups. Each group had 10 children and was led by a teacher. Xiao Yi and the other two were in Group A, which was led by Ding Lin, and Group B, which was led by Jinjin. The large group of people headed towards Strawberry Garden. The strawberry garden in the village was about 10 mu of land. The owners of the two largest plots of land were Fu Qinghai and Li Jianda. These were the two strawberry gardens that the children were going to today. Ding Lin took the children from Group A to Fu Qinghai's strawberry field. Fu Qinghai was an honest farmer in his 50s, with white hair and a face full of wrinkles. Facing so many pairs of innocent eyes, he rubbed his bark-like hands uncomfortably and said cheerfully, "Welcome to my strawberry garden." Ding Lin smiled and said, "Uncle Fu, can I trouble you to briefly explain to the children how to grow strawberries later?" Of course. Everyone, follow me." Before entering the strawberry greenhouse, Fu Qinghai gave each child a small bamboo basket for them to pick strawberries. Inside the wide greenhouse, rows of strawberry trees were neatly arranged. Between the green leaves, there were red strawberries. The rich fragrance of the strawberries filled the air, and it was so sweet that it was tempting. Xiao Bao was the first to notice that there was a hunched figure squatting in front of a row not far away. Judging by her movements, she should be picking strawberries. So many people came in noisily, but she did not look back and continued to do her own thing. Although she could not see her face, Xiao Bao recognized her from her back. She was the old granny with bad legs. Ding Lin also noticed and could not help but take a few more glances. Fu Qinghai explained with a smile, "That's my wife. She has bad legs and is a little introverted. Teacher, please don't take offense." No, we're the ones who are disturbing you." Ding Lin smiled politely. "Uncle Fu, where do you think we should start?" Fu Qinghai pointed to the ground beside his feet. "Let's start here. Children, I'll explain to you the techniques of picking strawberries." The children carried their small bamboo baskets and squatted in the ditch. They looked up and listened attentively to Fu Qinghai's explanation of how to identify ripe strawberries and how to pick them. "Okay, everyone can start picking strawberries now." While the children were enthusiastically picking strawberries, Fu Qinghai walked around them and gave them pointers from time to time. Occasionally, he would explain some knowledge about growing strawberries. Because they were too young, he did not go into too much detail. Most of the time, he talked about some interesting details, such as what diseases strawberries were prone to, what insects like to eat strawberries, and so on. Xiao Guai picked a red strawberry. It was crystal clear and so cute. She could not help but sniff it and lick her pink lips. She looked up at Fu Qinghai and said sweetly, "Grandpa, these strawberries look so delicious. Can I have one?" Fu Qinghai smiled wholeheartedly. The wrinkles on his face piled up together. "Little girl, although these strawberries look very clean, you still have to wash them before you can eat them. There's a sink over there. You can wash them there." He raised his hand and pointed to a spot near the door. There was a sink with a running water pipe. It was not very high and Xiao Guai could reach it on her tiptoes. "Oh, thank you, Grandpa." Xiao Guai smiled brightly, revealing her cute little dimples. Her beautiful big eyes twinkled. "Grandpa, can I take 3? I still have 2 older brothers." Fu Qinghai smiled and said, Of course. You can eat as much as you want. Other children, if you want to eat strawberries, you can also wash them at the sink." The kindergarten had already paid him a generous sum of money. The money was enough to buy a few hundred kilograms of strawberries. "Okay, thank you, Grandpa," the tender voices of children sounded. It turned out that Xiao Guai was not the only child who coveted the cute strawberries. They were just too embarrassed to say it out loud. The children held strawberries in their hands and ran in 2s and 3s to the sink at the door. Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao told Xiao Guai not to move and that they would go wash the strawberries. Xiao Guai refused and insisted on doing it herself. She was not greedy at all. She took 3 strawberries and ran to the sink with her little but swaying. She lined up behind the other children. At this moment, the old woman who was picking strawberries not far away walked towards the exit with a basket full of strawberries. After Xiao Guai finished washing the strawberries, she happily walked back. She bumped into the old woman who was carrying a bamboo basket. She sweetly called out, "Hello, Grandma." The old woman stopped in her tracks and stared at Xiao Guai. After carefully examining her, a complicated expression surged in her eyes. There was shock, disbelief, and pain. Xiao Guai then noticed the scar on the old woman's face. Her little mouth opened in shock, but she did not show any fear. After staring blankly for about 2 seconds, she suddenly stretched out her little hand and showed the strawberries in her palm. She smiled brightly and said, "Grandma, thank you for your strawberries." She skipped away like a lively little rabbit. The old woman turned her head stiffly, her eyes fixed on the little figure. She watched as the little girl ran in front of the 2 little boys and fed them 1 strawberry each before putting the last one into her own mouth. The 3 children laughed merrily, and the laughter flew to her side. She opened her mouth and breathed rapidly. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. The bamboo basket in her hand seemed to weigh 1,000 kilograms, and her body was tilting towards the ground. "Wife, what's wrong with you? Are you sick?" Fu Qinghai noticed that something was wrong with his wife and hurried over. He snatched the bamboo basket from her hand and placed it on the ground, supporting her with one hand. The old woman supported her chest with one hand and slowly shook her head. "I'm fine. Go to your work. Don't worry about me." "You don't look like you're fine." Fu Qinghai took out a bottle of spray from the pocket of her coat and sprayed it at her nose and mouth a few times. He grumbled, "I told you to rest at home, but you didn't listen and insisted on coming out to work. Are you feeling better now?" She nodded. "I'm much better. I'm fine now." "Hurry up and go home to rest. I'll do the work in the field." She sighed. "I'm the one who dragged you down." Fu Qinghai lowered his voice and said, "We're already an old couple. Why are you still saying this? Let's go. I'll take you home." "It's okay. I can go back by myself. You should stay here and take care of the guests." The old woman patted his arm. "All right then. Be careful on the way back." Fu Qinghai sighed as he looked at his wife's back as she walked away. The old woman came out of the greenhouse and looked at the land full of spring with a dazed expression. Tears gradually welled up in her eyes. Half an hour later, the strawberry picking was completed. Each child, carrying a basket full of ripe strawberries, walked down the country lane, laughing and talking as they returned to their temporary lodgings. "Gigai, give me the bamboo basket." Big brother will help you twist it. Gigai, I'll twist it for you. The two little brothers stretched out their hands at the same time to help Xiao Guai twist the bamboo basket. She looked at Xiao Yi and then looked at Xiao Bao. She smiled brightly. Don't fight with me. I'll twist it myself. Mommy said that you should do your own things. That's what a good child should do. Ding Lin, who was walking in front of them, overheard their conversation. She couldn't help but sigh in her heart. The Bailey family's upbringing was really good. The children they raised were polite and sensible. After putting the strawberries back in their residence, the teacher led them to the field to help the farmer uncle pick vegetables. The enthusiastic uncle gave them a lot of fresh vegetables that could be used during the picnic. At 4:30 p.m., everyone gathered on the lawn by the river. The children chattered non-stop. Yu Zhenzhen clapped her hands to quiet them down and arranged the next tasks. Attention, Hongcha 866. Chapter 335. Yu Zhenzhen announced, "Next, we will start preparing dinner. For tonight's dinner, you will need to find your own ingredients and collect your own firewood. As for the pots, pans, ladles, and other kitchen utensils, they will be prepared by the teachers. Tonight's dinner will also be cooked by the teachers." Ding Lin added, "We will still follow the previous grouping. Group A and Group B, each group will elect a group leader. The group leader will arrange for everyone to search for ingredients or collect firewood. Each group will be given a map. You just need to search for ingredients according to the houses marked on the map. Do you understand?" A little boy raised his small hand. "Teacher, we can only go to the places marked on the map to find ingredients?" "Yes, that's right." Ding Lin did not explain. The houses marked on the map were arranged by them in advance and they paid the owners. "Then what do we need to find? There are some dishes that I don't even recognize." A little girl said softly. "It's okay. There are names and pictures of the ingredients on the back of the map." Ding Lin passed the map to the children. Sure enough, there were pictures on the back of the map. There were cucumbers, potatoes, tomatoes, and so on. A few minutes later, Ding Lin said, "Now that you have received the map, you have to find the ingredients and firewood in an hour, then come back here. Do you understand?" The children all shouted at the same time, "Understood." "Now, I'll leave everything to you. Teacher Yu and I won't bother about everyone. We'll just wait for everyone to come back and cook. We'll give a reward to the group that finishes quickly and well. On the other hand, we'll punish the group that doesn't do well. Okay, the time starts now." Ding Lin looked at the watch on her wrist and seriously noted down the time. The children who were initially a little lazy immediately became alert when they heard that it was a competition. The two groups immediately separated and gathered for a meeting. Group A had Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao. The two of them were the most popular in the class, so everyone unanimously decided that they would be the group leader and vice group leader. Xiao Yi was the big brother, so Xiao Bao also listened to his orders. Xiao Yi puffed out her chest, and her pink cheeks looked serious. She seemed to be giving orders. "Xiao Bao, you go with Xiao Guai, Xiao Hao, Xiao Han, and Cici to look for ingredients. Jia, Hongxian, Xiao Rui, and Tian Tian will stay here to collect firewood." There were 4 girls and 6 boys in their group. They worked in pairs of 2 and 3. Xiao Yi guessed that the school had already prepared the ingredients. As long as they found the right farmer, it should be easy. Therefore, he asked Xiao Guai and Xiao Bao to go together. Xiao Bao raised his right hand and saluted. "Team leader, I promise to complete the mission." The 4 girls were amused by him, and they started to work while talking and laughing. Team B left after them and headed in a different direction. Xiao Yi led the soldiers to the forest in front. Among them, the oldest was only 6 years old. It was obviously difficult for them to break off the branches from the trees. Xiao Yi asked the 2 girls to be responsible for collecting the existing branches in the forest, while he and the 2 boys were responsible for the branches on the trees. Xiao Yi looked at them and frowned. If this went on, there was no way they could collect enough firewood to make dinner. He pondered for a moment, and his eyes suddenly lit up. He shouted, "Uncle Bao!" A Bao, who was hiding somewhere, quickly appeared. In front of outsiders, he did not call Xiao Yi young master. Instead, he called him by his name. Xiao Yi, what's the matter? Uncle Bao, you must have brought a dagger, right? Xiao Yi quickly ran in front of him and stretched out her hand. Lend me the dagger. Bao was alert. What do you want to do? I won't do anything bad. Hurry up and lend it to me. Okay. Bao pulled out a dagger from his calf and handed it over. This dagger is very sharp. Be careful. Got it. Thanks. You can disappear now. Xiao Yi turned and ran. Bao's mouth twitched. How could he be at ease and disappear when the young master had such a dangerous item in his hands? Thus, he stood in place and waited to see what Xiao Yi was going to do. Little Wingzi ran back to his companions and mumbled something to them. Bao saw little Wingzi stab the dagger at his waist and walk up to a pine tree that was as thick as a bowl. Little Wingzi wrapped his arms around it and clamped his legs together before climbing up. Bao's heart was in his throat. Xiao Yi, hurry up and come down. It's dangerous. Xiao Yi was an expert at climbing trees. He quickly climbed up and soon reached a branch that was as thick as a wrist. His small body stood on it, and he looked like he was going to fall at any time. The two girls could not help but scream. Bao rushed forward and stood under the tree with his arms open. Xiao Yi, it's too dangerous. Hurry up and come down. Xiao Yi's expression did not change. Uncle Bao, don't worry. I'll be fine. Don't stand here. I'm going to chop the branches. Everyone else, start working. We don't have much time left. So this was what he was going to use his dagger for. Xiao Yi held onto the tree trunk with one hand and held the dagger with the other. He aimed at the branches beside him and chopped them down. It was indeed a sharp dagger. Even though he did not have much strength, a branch that was as thick as 2 fingers was chopped off and fell to the ground. When the other 2 boys saw this, they looked for small trees within their strength and planned to break off the branches. Xiao Yi said, "Don't choose those small saplings. They will die if they break off the branches." Also, pine trees and cypress trees are flammable. Even wet firewood can be ignited. Look for these 2 types of branches. The oldest, Hong Xian, asked curiously, Xiao Yi, how do you know so much? Xiao Yi raised his eyebrows proudly. Daddy told me. Fortunately, Daddy had told him about his survival experiences on a deserted island. That was how he learned this knowledge. Just as the woodcutter Xiao Yi was busy chopping firewood, Xiao Bao led Xiao Guai and the others to start collecting ingredients according to the route on the map. The process was very smooth. Soon, they had collected 2 big bags of ingredients. Naturally, the 2 boys were holding them. The last house was Fu Qinghai's house. Xiao Bao asked the boys who were holding the bags to wait by the roadside. He led Xiao Guai and Cici forward and knocked on the door. Hello, is anyone home? After a few minutes, they heard the door creak open. An old lady appeared at the door. The moment she saw Xiao Guai, her eyes lit up. But soon, her eyes dimmed again. She asked, "What can I do for you?" Xiao Guai tilted his head, revealing his cute little dimples. "Grandma, can you give us some vegetables?" The old lady's voice softened. "What kind of vegetables do you want?" Xiao Guai quickly tugged at Xiao Bao's hand. "Brother, take a look. What's missing?" "Grandma, we also need cucumbers, potatoes, eggs, and fish. Do you have any of these?" The old lady looked at Xiao Bao and then at Xiao Guai. So they were siblings. The 2 children did look a little alike. She nodded. "You 2 come in with me." With that, she walked into the yard and pulled the puppy aside to prevent it from biting the children. "Cici, stay here and wait for us," Xiao Bao instructed. He held Xiao Guai's hand and followed behind the old lady. The yard wasn't big. Some flowers and plants were planted, and it was very clean. There were 4 or 5 red brick bungalows. The old lady led them directly to the kitchen. She bent down in front of the fridge to look for what they needed. She asked Xiao Guai casually, "Little girl, you look very cute. Do you look like your mother?" Xiao Guai replied crisply, "Yes, everyone says that I look like my mother. Grandaunt also said that I look exactly like my mother when we were young. It's as if we were cast from the same mold." Puh. An egg slipped from the old lady's hand and smashed on the ground. Xiaobao said, "Grandma, where's the broom? I'll help you clean it." "No need." The old lady refused, but quickly changed her mind. "It's in the yard outside. Help me get it." Xiaobao responded and turned to run into the yard. The old lady suddenly went up to Xiao Guai and asked in a low voice, "Little girl, what's your mother's name?" Xiao Guai blinked her big beautiful eyes. "Grandma, why do you want to know my mother's name? Daddy had once taught her not to tell strangers her parents' names." The old lady was stunned and said, "Because you look very much like my friend's daughter," Xiao Guai replied with an "oh." She tilted her head and looked at her, as if she was considering whether the old lady was a good person. After a moment, she smiled and said, "My mother's name is Xia Dong." "Xia Dong. Xia Dong. It's really her." The old lady's body suddenly trembled, and she almost knocked over everything in her hands. Her face suddenly became very ugly. She opened her mouth and gasped for breath, as if someone was choking her neck. "Grandma, what's wrong?" Xiao Guai was so anxious that she was about to cry. Xiaobao happened to walk in with a broom. When he saw the situation, he was shocked and quickly ran forward to help the old lady sit on a chair. "Grandma, are you okay? Don't be afraid." "I'm fine." The old lady comforted them as she took out a small spray from her pocket and sprayed it in front of her nose. After a few minutes, she finally calmed down. She let out a long sigh and looked at the concerned children around her. She couldn't help but feel a lump in her throat, and tears almost fell from her eyes. "Grandma, are you okay?" The two children asked in unison. "I'm fine. Grandma is fine." The old lady wiped the corners of her eyes and forced a smile. However, because of the scar on her face, her smile looked a little scary. She reached out to touch the two children's hair and said softly, "How old are you?" Xiao Guai said first, "We're 5 years old. We're in kindergarten." "Good, very good." The old lady's eyes were full of smiles. She looked at them carefully and asked softly, "How are your parents?" "Come and see." Hongsha 866. Chapter 336. Xiao Guai nodded proudly. "Very good. My daddy loves my mommy very much." Although Xiaobao was a little confused, he felt that the old grandma was not a bad person and nodded. "They're all very good." "That's good." The old grandma's smile widened. After a while, she retracted her hand and said, "I've prepared everything you need. Go back early. It's going to be dark soon." She put the things she had tidied into a convenience bag and sent them to the gate. "Thank you, Grandma." "Goodbye, Grandma." The children waved at her. She smiled and waved back. Her hunched body leaned against the gate until their figures disappeared from her sight. Then, she slowly retracted her gaze and returned to the yard with a lonely expression. When the sun set, the children rushed back to the river with the treasures they had found. Soon, they found 2 cooking stoves on the lawn. The teacher had already washed the pots and pans and was waiting for them to come back so that they could start cooking. "Wow, teacher, you're so amazing. Are these used for cooking? How did you build them?" Ding Lin had already used the firewood Xiao Yi and the others had picked up to start the stove. She wiped the sweat off her face and smiled as she explained to the children how to build a simple stove and how to ignite the firewood to make the fire burn brighter. Then, she instructed the students in Team A that the boys would be in charge of fetching water, the girls would be in charge of washing the vegetables, and she would handle the fresh fish by the river. Under the teacher's lead, the 2 groups of people started to cook. Halfway through cooking, Team B ran out of firewood. The children stared at each other, and Yu Zhenzhen could not help but break out in cold sweat. The children who were in charge of collecting firewood were very innocent. They raised their little hands pitifully. "Teacher, we've already worked very hard." "Boo-hoo, it's okay. Teacher will think of a way." Yu Zhenzhen comforted them. She threw down the half-cooked vegetables and ran to Team A's side. "Teacher Ding, do you have enough firewood?" "We have enough." But Ding Lin was busy with the fish in the pot and did not notice what was happening in Team B. Hong Xian shouted, "Teacher Ding, Team B ran out of firewood." Yu Zhenzhen coughed and awkwardly said, "Yeah, we ran out of firewood." If you have extra, can you lend me some? Sure, Xiao-Yi chopped a lot, so there should be some extra. Take some with you. Ding Lin generously gave her half of the firewood. Woodcutter Xiao-Yi was in a good mood when he saw that the firewood he chopped could help his opponent. Dinner was finally ready. The girls had already laid out a beautiful tablecloth on the lawn and arranged the bowls and chopsticks. The two sets of dishes were placed together and everyone formed a big circle. The children who were picky at home seemed to have been starved for a long time. Their eyes were glowing with a green light as they stared at the fragrant dishes and kept swallowing their saliva. All right, let's eat. Don't waste food. At the teacher's command, the children picked up their bowls and wolfed down the food. They were starving. Gigai, be careful. It's hot. Xiao-Yi picked up an egg with her chopsticks and placed it in Xiao Gigai's bowl. Xiao Bao immediately removed the bones from the fish and placed it in her bowl. Gigai, eat the fish. There are no bone. The other girls were envious. They also wanted such a handsome and caring brother. They wanted to go home and ask their mommy to give birth to one. After dinner, the stars were already shining in the sky. The teacher used the leftover firewood to make a bonfire. Everyone sat around the bonfire and listened to the teacher's summary of the day's activities. Ding Lin glanced at the children who were staring at her and said, "Everyone did a great job today. Did you all learn a lot?" "Yes," they said in unison. "We would like to especially commend Xiao-Yi. He has great organizational and leadership skills. He also did a great job collecting firewood. Please give him a round of applause." Enthusiastic applause rang out. "Brother Yi, you're so awesome." Xiao Gigai clapped excitedly. Xiao-Yi was used to being praised since he was young, but he had never been as happy as he was today. He received everyone's admiring gazes. This was the first time he felt shy in front of so many people. His handsome little face was flushed red and his eyes were sparkling. He didn't know where to look. Group A, who won the competition, was rewarded with a chance to talk to their parents on the phone for 5 minutes. The children in Group A were so happy that they jumped up and down. The children in Group B could only look on with envy. Group B, who lost the competition, was punished with a confession of truth. Everyone had to say something from the bottom of their heart. The children all talked at once. "I don't like green peppers. Every time mommy makes me eat green peppers, I secretly spit them out. I'm very timid. I don't dare to sleep alone at night. I hate my desk mate because he always bullies me." Finally, it was the turn of an introverted little girl named Louie. She stood up and looked at Xiao-Yi with her clear eyes. She mustered up her courage and said, "I like Bailey Yi. I want to marry him when I grow up." Everyone burst into laughter. Louie sat down with a red face. She bit her lip and lowered her head without saying a word. The girl sitting next to her turned around and said something to her. Her head hung even lower. "Xiao-Yi, I didn't expect you to be so popular." Xiao Bao poked Xiao-Yi's arm with a mischievous smile. Xiao-Yi's cheeks turned red again. Xiao Bao laughed at him for 20 years because of this. Yu Xinzhen clapped her hands and helped Lu Yi and Xiao-Yi out of the situation. "Everyone is tired today. Let's go home and rest early. Teacher Ding and I will wake everyone up tomorrow morning. After breakfast, we will return to the city. Does anyone have any questions?" "No." "All right then. Uncle Bodyguard will send everyone back to their respective residences now. Everyone needs to wash up and change on their own. Don't run around at night. Gigai can sleep. Any questions?" "No." Yu Xinzhen breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, these precious children knew how to brush their teeth and wash their faces. Otherwise, she and Ding Lin would be very busy. However, it was still too early for her to be optimistic. This was a rural area. Several families did not have bathrooms at all. The children could not bathe either. There were a few spoiled children. Although they said that there was no problem, their faces were not clean. They did not know how to comb their hair and had to be taken care of by teachers. Little Winged Hero walked at the front in high spirits, leading his little brother and little sister back home. The owner of the homestay had already turned on the lights in the room and prepared 2 basins of hot water to welcome their return. "Gigai, you can't bathe in Uncle's house. Just wipe yourself. Xiao Yi wet a towel in the basin, wrung it dry, and handed it to Xiao Guai. Xiao Bao had already found pajamas from Xiao Guai's suitcase and placed them by the bed. Gi Gai will go out first. If you need anything, just shout. Got it? Xiao Guai responded softly. After the two brothers left, she closed the door and was about to take off her clothes to wipe herself when she suddenly heard Xiao Bao's voice from outside. Grandma, why are you here? Xiao Guai quickly put down the towel, opened the door, and called out crisply, Grandma, you're here. The old woman leaned on a walking stick, held a flashlight, and held a thermos in her hand. She smiled and said, Grandma was worried that you didn't eat enough, so I specially brought chicken soup for you. Come, hurry into the house and drink it while it's hot. The children looked at her eager eyes and didn't have the heart to tell her that they were actually very full now. Hurry, don't stand at the door. Hurry up and come in. The old woman sat on a chair and opened the thermos. A fragrant smell immediately wafted out. 3 small bowls were filled with soup and placed on the table. The children looked at each other and finally reached out to pick up the bowls at the same time. Xiao Guai took a sip, smiled, and sighed with satisfaction. Wow, it's delicious. It's as delicious as Mommy's. The old woman smiled. Drink more if it's delicious. Okay. The old woman looked around the room and saw the 2 basins and the pajamas on the bed. She immediately understood and said softly, I can take a bath at home. Do you want to come? Xiaoyi didn't know what happened to Xiao Bao and the others when they were looking for ingredients, so she was still wary of the old woman. She said politely, Grandma, we don't have to trouble you. We are already very grateful that you brought us chicken soup. The old woman looked a little disappointed. She glanced at Xiao Guai, who was holding a bowl of soup and drinking it, and said, How about this? I'll help your sister wipe her body. She's young and can't do these things by herself. Xiao Yi was still hesitating, but Xiao Bao had already agreed. Okay, then I'll have to trouble you, Grandma. 10 minutes later. The door was closed, and Xiao Guai's giggles could be heard from time to time. Xiao Bao and Xiao Yi were squatting in a corner of the yard. Xiao Yi muttered unhappily, How can you agree to a stranger's request so casually? Xiao Bao lowered his voice and said, Grandma isn't a bad person. I've already checked. Also, didn't you just drink her chicken soup? Xiao Yi muttered, Grandma was so enthusiastic. I couldn't refuse. Xiao Bao patted his shoulder. It's okay. She really isn't a bad person. 20 minutes later, the door opened. Xiao Guai was wearing cute plaid bear pajamas, and her little face was clean. The old woman held her in her arms and wiped her face with children's moisturizer. Her rough fingers rubbed against her cheeks, and Xiao Guai couldn't help but laugh. Grandma, it's so itchy. It'll be done soon. Bear with it. The old woman's eyes were kind, and her movements were very gentle. Xiao Bao and Xiao Yi saw that they were getting along so well. They looked at each other and were a little surprised. The old woman seemed to like Xiao Guai very much. When you go to bed at night, cover yourself with a blanket and close the door. If you have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, wake up Uncle to accompany you. Do you understand? The old woman reminded the 3 children repeatedly before she left. Okay, Grandma. Be careful when you go home. It's very dark on the road. The 3 children walked her to the gate of the yard. The old woman waved at the children. Go back to sleep. It wasn't until the 3 small figures left that she sighed and limped home with the help of her walking stick. Come and see. Hongsha 866. Chapter 337. Xia Dong was not used to the nights when the children were not at home. As she walked, she accidentally walked to the door of the children's room. She suddenly remembered that they were not at home and returned to the bedroom in loneliness. Bailey Han came out of the study and saw Xia Dong in such a depressed state. She was curled up on a plump fabric sofa. She looked so small and pitiful. He squeezed to her side and pulled her into his arms. You miss the children? Xia Dong was like a caterpillar. She moved into the most comfortable position in his arms and said sullenly, Hai is also asleep. I suddenly feel like I've become a housewife with nothing to do. All I do is revolve around my husband and children. When you're not at home, I don't know what to do. Bailey Han lowered his head and kissed her hair. Do you want to go out to work? She looked up at him, her eyes full of anticipation. Will you agree? The corners of his lips turned up. What do you think? You agree? Xia Dong hugged his neck excitedly and kissed him hard on the lips. He held the back of her head and deepened the kiss. He did not let go of her until their breathing became irregular. His voice was magnetic and hoarse. If you feel bored and want to go out to work, I won't stop you. But you can't work too hard. Yes, they definitely won't. Xia Dong had yet to recover from that tender kiss. Her cheeks were flushed, and her voice was soft and charming. But will Grandma and Mom and Dad disagree? Most wealthy families did not want their daughters-in-law to show her face outside. He hugged her tightly. Grandma is very open-minded. As long as we can convince her, Dad and Mom will be fine. It's not good for me to show my face in this matter. You should have a good talk with them. Xia Dong understood. If she persuaded the three elders, they would definitely think that Bailey Han was too obedient and controlled by her. They might even have some ideas about her. So it was more appropriate for her to do it herself. Thank you, hubby. I thought you wouldn't support me. She lay on his chest, her heart full of warmth. Bailey Han stroked her long hair and chuckled. I like to see you working. You're beautiful. He clearly remembered that when she was the editor-in-chief of Charm magazine, she had discussed advertising cooperation with Renjijia. She had exuded a mature and confident charm, which had made his eyes light up. Xia Dong wrapped her arms around his neck and leaned against him. She smiled and said, Hubby, you're so sweet tonight. Are you afraid that I'll punish you? He raised his eyebrows. How can that be? Didn't I say that you can do whatever you want with me? Have you thought of how you want to deal with me? A mischievous smile appeared on Xia Dong's face. I didn't have any ideas at first, but now I suddenly have an idea. What do you want to do? He bit her ear, emphasizing the last word. It was a word that made people's imagination run wild. She unceremoniously bit his earlobe and snorted. I'll let you see how powerful I am. Let's see if you dare to hide it from me in the future. She was still brooding over the fact that he had secretly sent bodyguards to protect the children. His sexy laughter came from the depths of his throat as his chest heaved up and down. Wifey, I can't wait to see how powerful you are. She pinched his face and said to him in a libertine tone, Little girl, go to bed and wait for me. His chest heaved up and down even more. He almost laughed until he was out of breath. Wifey, so you have this kind of hobby when you're angry. Xia Dong's cheeks flushed red. However, since she had already taken this step, she was going to go all out. She angrily patted his chest. Be serious. I'm being serious. Bailey Han held back his laughter. It wasn't easy for him to get this kind of benefit. He was afraid that if he continued to laugh, his wife would shrink back. He nodded seriously. Hey, master. This servant will go lie on the bed and wait for your pleasure. That's right. Go quickly. Xia Dong deliberately touched the bulge in front of his chest and then quickly jumped down from his body. By the time she found what she needed and rushed back to the bedroom, Bailey Han had really stripped himself down to a pair of shorts and was spread out on the bed like a pancake. His limbs were spread out, and a certain part of his body was already standing up impatiently, saying, Hey, hey, hey. Xia Dong's cheeks reddened, but a certain person's expression was extremely calm. It was as if he was talking about the weather as he called out to her. Master, this servant can't wait any longer. Xia Dong almost spat out blood. He was too perverted. Don't be anxious. I'll be right there. She coughed and thought of her punishment plan. She forced herself to calm down and climbed onto the ridiculously large bed. She took out a few neckties from her pocket and tied his wrists to the headboard. Wifey! Bailey Han had a bad premonition. His wife had turned into a little devil. He could almost see 2 small horns on her head. Xia Dong smiled evilly. After confirming that he couldn't move, she knelt by the bed and slowly took off her clothes. After taking off a piece, she casually threw it off the bed. Not long after, she was only left with a pair of black lacy underwear. Her silky long hair poured down and half covered her beautiful figure. Her soft and towering breasts were enveloped by the soft light and her entire body was suffused with an alluring luster. Bailey Hans Adams' apple bobbed, and his deep eyes blazed with fire. She deliberately threw him a coquettish glance and supported herself with her arms. Like a lazy little wildcat, she slowly climbed up his body. Her silky smooth skin was tightly pressed against him, rubbing against him inch by inch. Her buds had already bloomed and were slowly moving up his sturdy abdomen. As she teased him, sparks flew in all directions, almost setting the prairie ablaze. Her concave area rubbed against his convex area. The moist heat soaked the black lacy underwear and stained his scalding skin. His mouth was dry and his eyes were burning. He panted heavily and his smooth chin was raised in impatience. Beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. He was already having a hard time enduring and was about to explode from the pain. But that little devil was still unwilling to let him go. She deliberately rubbed against his chest and licked his earlobe with the tip of her tongue. She whispered seductively, I'm so hot." He panted heavily and looked at the little woman on top of him. His eyes had already turned red from lust. "Wifey, let go of me. No, I haven't played enough." Her slender fingers grasped his perky buttocks and slowly tightened. Her movements were very jerky but very seductive. He raised his chin high and was almost unable to control himself. After he exploded, she wiped the liquid on her hands and got off the bed with a naughty smile on her lips. "Hubby, I'm going to take a shower. Gigai can lie here." Little rascal, she clearly knew that a certain part of his body was not appeased and was even more inflamed. She actually left him here just like that. Bailey Han gritted his teeth and the sound of fabric tearing could be heard. Before Xia Dong could react, her body was already in the air. The next moment, she was lying on the soft mattress. A certain someone's hideous face that was tortured by lust suddenly appeared above her. "Little rascal, you want to escape after lighting me up?" A certain someone imprisoned her in his arms. His hot breath sprayed on her face and his low and hoarse voice was filled with lust. Over the next few hours, Bailey Han tortured her until she cried and begged for mercy. Reality proved that she would always be the weaker party in front of him. Even with the help of neckties and ropes, she could not succeed in her counterattack. This was what it meant to reap what you sow. The next day, Xia Dong rubbed her aching waist and came to the conclusion that made her cry. On the other side, the children in the kindergarten were extremely excited. They could finally leave this small mountain village and go home. After breakfast, the children dragged their small suitcases and ran happily to the minibus. Little Wingzy and his siblings walked at a leisurely pace at the back of the group. Lil Guai looked back at the village, her beautiful eyes filled with reluctance. Big brother Wingzy, I think this place is pretty good." Xiao Bao touched her hair and said seriously, "If that's the case, then Gigai shouldn't go home with us. You can stay here." Xiao Yi also looked serious. "Yeah, we'll tell Daddy and Mommy that Gigai can't bear to leave this place." "Ah." Xiao Guai's little face immediately fell. She said pitifully, "Are you going to leave me behind?" Xiao Yi nodded. "Yeah, you said you couldn't bear to leave this place." Xiao Guai frowned and almost cried. "I just couldn't bear to leave. I didn't say I was going to stay here. Brother Yi, don't leave me behind, okay? I miss Daddy and Mommy so much." Xiao Bao laughed. "Little fool, we're just teasing you. How could we leave you behind?" Xiao Yi touched her head and sighed. "Gigai, why are you so naive? I'm so worried that you'll be sold off one day and still help them count the money." Xiao Guai was stunned. Then she said angrily, "You're so mean. When I get home, I'm going to tell Daddy and Mommy that you bullied me." In the distance, Teacher Ding Lin shouted, "Xiao Yi, Xiao Bao, Xiao Guai, it's only the three of you left. Hurry up and get in the car." "Coming." Xiao Bao answered and grabbed the suitcases from Xiao Guai. "Let's go. The teacher is rushing us." Xiao Bao dragged the two suitcases forward. Xiao Yi dragged the suitcases with one hand and held Xiao Guai's hand with the other. Xiao Guai suddenly stopped in her tracks and pointed to a big tree on the right. Brother Yi, look over there. It looks like an old granny. Xiao Yi followed her line of sight. It really was that strange old granny. She leaned on a walking stick and leaned against the big tree. She kept staring in their direction, but no one knew what she was looking at. Yeah, it's the old granny. Let's go. Xiao Yi turned around and tugged at Xiao Guai's little hand. Brother Yi, you guys go first. I'll go say goodbye to Granny. Xiao Guai ignored Xiao Yi's attempts to stop her and ran toward the big tree. The old woman looked at Xiao Guai running over from afar with a hint of warmth in her eyes. Xiao Guai ran in front of her and smiled. Granny, we're leaving. Goodbye. The old woman touched her head and smiled kindly. Goodbye. The minibus drove far away. Xiao Yi looked back and saw the old woman standing beside the big tree, staring at them from afar. Ad. Hongcha 866. Chapter 338. After returning home, the children told Xia Dong and Bailey Han about the old lady. They all thought that the old lady liked children, so she took special care of them and did not take it to heart. The impact of this spring outing on the children was obvious. Xiao Guai, who had always been picky about food, was not only not picky about food, but also ate all the food in her bowl at every meal, not wasting a single bit. Little Wingsy and Little Treasure both had the thought that they were not strong enough, so when Bailey Han announced that he had hired a coach to teach them martial arts, they cheered and jumped for joy. Their spirits were high as they looked forward to the arrival of April. Just as they were craning their necks and gazing into the distance, April stepped into the world with the warm spring breeze. The Taekwondo and Judo coaches also arrived as scheduled. Every morning at 6 o'clock, the three little guys were dragged out of bed by Bailey Han with sleepy eyes and brought to the training room. At first, the three of them were not used to it. They stood weakly in the empty training room and yawned. Slowly, after they got used to it, they did not need to be called. When it was time, they would get out of bed and wait for the coach on the training field. Gigai was waiting for the coach. The day before the Qingming festival, Bailey Yun came back from the United States to visit Xiaobao. In the afternoon, the plane arrived in City A. After he walked out of the airport, he looked at his watch and got into the car that his family's chauffeur had sent to pick him up. He did not go home directly, but asked the chauffeur to drive the car to the gate of Imperial Kindergarten. When the car arrived at the kindergarten, school had just finished. Xiao Bao and her siblings came out of the school gate and saw Bailey Yun leaning on the Rolls-Royce at a glance. He, who always valued his image, looked travel-worn. However, this did not detract from his handsome appearance and elegant temperament. He lazily crossed his arms, and there was a warm smile on his handsome face. He looked handsome and unrestrained. Many parents who came to pick up their children were attracted by his outstanding figure. Second uncle, Xiao Yi and Xiao Guai shouted excitedly and enthusiastically threw themselves at him. Xiao Bao pursed her pink lips. She lowered her head slightly and walked slowly at the back. Little guys, did you miss second uncle? Bailey Yun snorted on Xiao Yi's head, then picked up Xiao Guai and kissed her cheek. Finally, he looked at Xiao Bao, who was slowly walking towards him. After leaving City A after the Spring Festival, although Xiao Bao called him Daddy at the airport, he refused to call him every time he called, which made Bailey Yun very depressed. At this moment, the awkward child dawdled for a long time before approaching him. Bailey Yun placed Xiao Guai on the ground. He reached out his arm and pulled Xiao Bao, who was standing a meter away from him, over. He rubbed his hair hard and chuckled. Son, Daddy is back. Don't you want to give Daddy a warm hug? Xiao Bao puffed up his cheeks and turned his face awkwardly. Oh, welcome back. Yo, you're really cold. I've been working overtime these past few days in vain, just to squeeze out a few more days to accompany you. Bai Liyun's tone was lonely and bleak, just like a resentful woman who was despised by others. Xiao Bao could not help but turn to look at him. At such a close distance, he saw that his eyelids were slightly green and his eyes were bloodshot. It seemed like he had not slept well for a long time. Xiao Bao had a very complicated feeling in his heart. When he was not around, he would miss him, But when he really appeared in front of him, he felt helpless and did not know how to face him. In short, Xiaobao accepted the fact that Bailey Yun was his father, but he was not used to interacting with him. His little eyes flickered, and his lips moved as he said dryly, You don't have to work so hard in the future. Bailey Yun was overjoyed by his seemingly caring words. He smiled and carried him up. Son, I'll take it that you're concerned about me. Xiaobao's pink little ears were slightly red. While the father and son were talking about their feelings, Xiao Yi had already held Xiao Guai's hand, quietly retreated, and got into the car. Son, did you miss me when I wasn't around? Bailey Yun placed Xiao Bao in the Rolls-Royce and sat beside him. He smiled and said, I missed you a lot. Xiao Bao said in a muffled voice, It's okay, I didn't miss you a lot. Bai Li Yun cupped his heart and said with melancholy, Son, you hurt my heart too much. Xiao Bao seemed to be used to having such a thick-skinned father. He did not feel embarrassed at all. Instead, he felt a little happy. Bailey Yun could stay in the country for 3 days this time. He planned to take Xiao Bao out to play during the Tomb Sweeping Day holiday to improve the relationship between father and son. On the day of the Tomb Sweeping Day, Xia Dong and Bailey Han brought Xiao Yi and Xiao Guai to visit their mother's grave. As if to celebrate the festival, it started to drizzle. The rain was very light, so there was no need to hold an umbrella. At most, it would be a little wet when it touched people. Xiao Yi and Xiao Guai each held a bouquet of lilies in their arms as the family of 4 walked on the tree-lined road. There were many people like them who were visiting the grave. They were in 2s and 3s, and their expressions were solemn or sad. Xia Dong did not expect to meet Su Yunxian's parents here. Su Bolin held Mrs. Su's waist as the two of them walked alone. They looked sad and Mrs. Su's eyes were red. Uncle, Auntie, Bailey Han greeted them politely. Su Bolin and his wife were stunned for a moment before they nodded. You're here to visit the grave too? Bailey Han turned his head to look at Xia Dong. We're here to visit mother-in-law. The atmosphere was a little awkward. Ever since Su Yunxian's matter was exposed, the two families had completely fallen out and had not interacted for a long time. Su Bolin coughed and said, Then go quickly. Don't delay. Bailey Han nodded politely. The family of 4 was about to leave when Su Bolin pursed his lips and suddenly said, Bailey Han turned around. Uncle, is there anything else? Su Bolin's eyes were filled with guilt. He hesitated for a moment before he slowly said, I haven't had the chance to apologize to you and Xia Dong. Today, I want to apologize to you on behalf of Yun Qian. I don't expect you to forgive her, but I hope you don't hate her. Bailey Han said calmly, Uncle, let bygones be bygones. Don't mention it again. Hating someone was actually a very difficult thing. Because of hatred, you always remembered the reason for your hatred. You remembered the pain that others had caused you. Every time you recalled it, it was like you were being dismembered. In front of Xia Ling's tombstone were flowers that the children had presented to her. Xia Dong went forward and squatted in front of the tombstone. She stared at the small photo on the tombstone and said gently, Mom, Xiao Guai's illness has been cured. Ahan and I have given you a little grandson. Are you happy? Mom, Ahan is very good to me. We live a very happy life. You can rest assured in heaven. Every time Xia Dong came to visit her mother, she felt bad. She felt that it was unfair for her mother. She felt that it was a pity that her mother did not have a good day. Her nose was sour and her eyes were moist. Bailey Han helped her up from the ground. He stared at Xia Ling's photo with a serious expression and said, Mom, don't worry. I will take good care of Xia and the children. While they were reminiscing about Xia Ling, they did not know that a thin figure was hiding behind the tombstone behind them. Every word they said fell into her ears. Her thin shoulders trembled slightly as if she was suppressing something. Honey, let's go. Bailey Han put his arm around Xia Dong's waist and beckoned the 2 children to follow. The figure could not help but straighten up. She looked past the tombstone and greedily wanted to take a few more glances at them. Unexpectedly, she had squatted for too long, and her legs were already numb. In addition, her right leg was not flexible to begin with. As her body leaned forward, she stumbled and bumped into the fruit plate in front of the tombstone. The fruit plate fell over with a clang, and the apples inside rolled out. "Hey, I think I heard something." Lil Gwai and little Wingsy held hands as they walked at the back. Lil Gwai's ears were sharp. Suddenly, they stopped in their tracks and looked around. However, they did not discover anything because the figure had quickly retreated behind the tombstone. An apple rolled to her feet with a gurgle. Xiao Guai stared at the big red apple at her feet and shouted, "Mommy, there's an apple. It's so strange. Where did the apple come from? Maybe someone accidentally dropped it during the ceremony." Xia Dong also looked around. Finally, she found several apples scattered in front of the tombstone on the left. She pointed there and said, "It probably rolled over from there. Then I'll take this apple back." Xiao Guai bent down to pick up the apple and ran to the tombstone on the left. The person hiding in the back didn't have time to dodge and was hit by her. Xiao Guai looked at the figure in surprise and smiled sweetly. "Grandma, you're here too." The old woman had no choice but to stand up. With her back facing Xia Dong, she lowered her voice and said, "Yes, Xiao Guai, hurry over. Your daddy and mommy are still waiting for you." Xia Dong and Bailey Han were surprised to see the old woman's back. Xia Dong asked Xiao Yi, "Does Xiao Guai know that old woman?" Xiao Yi had already recognized the old woman's back and nodded. "She's the old woman we met during the spring outing in the mountain village." "I see. Then we should go over and say hello to her and thank her for taking care of you. Hubby, what do you think?" Bailey Han had no objections. "Grandma." Xiao Yi ran in front and greeted the old woman affectionately. "Xiao Yi, you're here too." The old woman pretended to have just seen her. "Hello, Auntie." It was Xia Dong who spoke. Hearing Xia Dong's familiar voice, the old woman suddenly froze. She lowered her head and did not dare to look back at her. Seeing that the old woman did not respond, Xia Dong walked in front of her and said politely, "Auntie, I heard from the children that you took care of them during their spring outing. I thank you on behalf of the children." The old woman still lowered her head. Her right hand gripped the walking stick tightly as she said in a hoarse voice, "It's okay. I like the 3 children very much." Bailey Han sized up the old woman. She was neatly dressed and had white hair. Her right leg was not agile and she was holding a walking stick in her hand. Perhaps it was because of the scar on her face, she kept her head down and was unwilling to look up at them. He did not take it to heart and smiled. "Auntie, it's not easy to get a taxi on this road. If you don't mind, I can give you a ride." The old woman shook her head. "It's okay. There's no need to trouble you. I can go back by myself." Xiao Guai blinked his big eyes and said softly, "Grandma, there's still a long way to go from here. Why don't you take our car?" Xia Dong said, "Yes, Annie. It's not safe for you to take a car alone. Let us take you to the bus station." The old woman lowered her head and was silent for a moment. Finally, she said in a hoarse voice, "Okay then. Sorry to trouble you." Xia Dong smiled. "It's no trouble. Xiao Yi, help Grandma. We're leaving." Bailey Han realized that the 2 children were really close to the old woman, especially Xiao Guai. She walked on the left side of the old woman with a bright smile on her little face. She would say something that he did not understand from time to time. It sounded like a story that an old person would tell a child. He guessed that the old woman might have told it to her in the past. The old woman also liked Xiao Guai very much. She would stroke her little head from time to time and laugh softly. The old woman and the young girl would laugh together like a pair of grandmother and granddaughter. The group of people walked on the shaded road and headed out of the cemetery. A man walked towards them. His hair was white and the corners of his eyes were full of wrinkles. He was holding a bouquet of chrysanthemums in his hands. It was Xia Zhenxing. Xia Dong stopped in her tracks. Bailey Han's hand on her waist tightened. It was obvious that he was trying to comfort her. Xia Zhenxing also stopped in his tracks. He looked a little uncomfortable. His right hand clutched his chrysanthemum tightly. Xia, you're here too." Bailey Han's lips moved. Just as he was about to speak, Xiao Guai's exclamation came from behind. "Grandma, what's wrong?" Then came Xiao Yi's anxious voice. "Grandma's asthma is acting up." "Xiao Guai, Can you check if Grandma's spray is in that pocket? Bailey Han and Xia Dong quickly turned around to help. Bailey Han took the spray from Xiao Guai and sprayed it in front of the old woman's nose. Her rapid breathing gradually weakened and her twitching body gradually stabilized. Even so, she still lowered her head and was unwilling to raise it. Xia Dong held her arm and said worriedly, "Auntie, why don't you sit down and rest for a while?" She calmed her breathing and said slowly, "I'm fine. I'm fine now." Xia Zhenxing looked at them in a daze. He clearly didn't understand what was going on with this team. After Bailey Han confirmed that the old madam had recovered, he patted Xiao Yi's little head and said, "Xiao Yi, Xiao Guai, why aren't you greeting him? Hurry up and greet Grandpa." The two children's first reaction was to look at Xia Dong's expression. They knew that their mommy didn't like their grandpa. Xia Dong's expression was indifferent and didn't show any displeasure. Thus, the two children were relieved. They smiled and said, "Hello, Grandpa." Xia Zhenxing was so excited that he almost cried. He said repeatedly, "Hello, hello." Awesome novel, Hongcha 866. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.